Or like, wouldn't that be great if there was a chick in a mech? Or do you come at it more for?
I like him imagining it's a chick.
Yeah, a little,
like a
little
tiny little
peep,
chicken.
a little chicken. Bastion's
bird
in a mech. That'd be amazing. Or do you come at it more with the world story and the overall story of saying, like, we need a character who will fill this role in the story, and then back into what that person's mechanics will be?
It can be very organic, right?
Yeah.
It could be a drawing from a concept artist that we see. It could be something that someone's just talking about. It could even be something very specific, like if the designers have a really specific idea, it could come from that too. But overall, it's really organic. I think some ideas come really quick, and some ideas could go on a while. There could be a lot of iteration.
Yeah.
So I would say it's very organic at the base, how the heroes are actually created.
Yeah, like May came from a desire to have a Frost character, someone we could play around with geometry.
She's awesome.
Yeah.
We wanted to do a bunch of ice abilities, where Genji was just an amazing picture from Arnold Sang. It was like this gorgeous picture. Yeah. We're like, we don't know what that guy does, but he's so
we
cool.
like him.
We want to be him.
Yeah. So. And that's the one, was that the one where it was sort of like both Hanzo and Genji at the same time? It was sort of like a metallic version of Hanzo.
Yep.
It's so great that you guys have the opportunity to be able to say, let's just blow that out into two brothers.
Yeah. You know, one of the questions I have, you know, as we're playing the beta and getting into it and learning all the characters and seeing who all of them are, because we are getting used to them, and I know you and I talked about this a little while ago, but is it possible to potentially, during gameplay, get a little toggle button so that I'm not looking at somebody's gamer tag and I can just see who the character is, especially as you're releasing skins?
We just saw that suggestion pop up on the subreddit, and I think it's killer. It's something that we want to look into more in general with the interface. We have a really great interface designer. His name is Jeremy Craig, and the way he wants to approach it is not to make like the WoW interface where it's completely customizable. But to try to figure out what things do we need to add a little bit more in the way of options for the players. So we've seen a lot of people, they want to see gamer tag, a lot of people want to see real ID, other people said I need to see the hero. And that's one of those ones where I think instead of trying to get inside your head, maybe we figure out an option.
Yeah, because if I just know this one is, you know, just what the heroes are, as people continue to get used to all of these new heroes, you have 21 coming out at launch. So there's a lot for people to just sort of, you know, take in.
Yeah, it's funny, we actually do that in all of the videos that we ever put out where we show gameplay. The characters are just named who they are. Like Torbjorn's just Torbjorn.
I like the idea of doing a toggle. That's really
just a toggle. That way you still have the gamer tag and you don't lose it, but just so that you know.
So we got another question from Twitter. This is from @thatshack. Can you tell us how you're going to address a ranked mode in Overwatch? So right now, you know, the mode is go play.
Yep.
You know.
So we've talked a lot about a ranked mode. We don't have anything specific at this point. We haven't done a ton of work on it. We've been doing preliminary design, and most of that revolves around our discussions with our friends on the Hearthstone team, the StarCraft team, and the Heroes of the Storm team. We're also talking to guys on World of Warcraft who are working on the arena. So we're trying to get a sense of what works really well, what hasn't worked for them in the past, and how we should pursue ranked mode with Overwatch. It's going to be a little bit more organic how it comes together. We're hoping to have something for launch in terms of ranked play, but if it doesn't, we don't have the perfect ranked mode, something we're not feeling comfortable with, it'll become a post-launch feature. But it's something we're actively discussing, and I think we have a lot of experience in the studio to help us make a good version of it.
Yeah, you have some deep connections to games that have been around for a while that you can pull from, which is fantastic.
Yeah, and you guys have had such a huge day, and congratulations to you and your entire team on everything Overwatch. Like, we can't wait to go home and just start playing it again.
We played it last night during our dinner break. I mean, that's how much this game.
Let's all group up tonight.
Done.
Love that. All right, sounds good. Well, thank you, Jeff and Bill, for joining us. We now have a World of Warcraft panel coming up at the top of the hour, and you may already be wondering what to expect when you go up against the upcoming expansion's deadly, all-powerful Burning Legion. Fortunately, there's a brand new hero class to help you take down this formidable foe. Let's check in with the team to learn a little more about your newest ally, the Demon Hunter.
I'm Tom Chilton, Game Director for World of Warcraft. Legion is really the deepest and most substantial World of Warcraft experience yet. So where we're going with the storyline for Legion is that we're picking up where Warlords of Draenor left off. What we have now is the continuing storyline that evolves after Gul'dan is sent through the portal that Archimonde used to come to Draenor. So what we see is Gul'dan gets sent to Azeroth, and it's in being sent to Azeroth that he goes and raises the Tomb of Sargeras, and he's able to bring the Legion to Azeroth once again. So the Demon Hunter is the second hero class that we're adding to the World of Warcraft, and really the fantasy behind the Demon Hunter is to be Illidan, essentially. He's just such a cool, iconic character. You know, he's kind of using that fell magic to make himself more powerful and really fight against the Legion. That's his, real mission in life, is to take on the Legion, and he does that by taking on the powers of the Legion. So the new artifact weapons are really significant for the World of Warcraft because we've had these iconic weapons that are just, really integral to the lore of the world and the overall storyline of Warcraft. Players are finally going to be able to get their hands on them. They've heard about them for a long time. They've seen some of them in the hands of other NPCs. Now they're finally going to experience those for themselves. A reason that it's such a significant part of this expansion is because from a story standpoint, the players really need to get these artifacts to have any chance of taking on the Burning Legion. But it goes beyond that, because from a gameplay standpoint, they really represent the first time that you've been able to get a weapon and then develop that specific weapon over time. So that you start off with a weapon that is very powerful, but has a lot of untapped potential. The class order halls in a lot of ways are very central to the artifact system, because the order halls are the place where you are rallying all the members of your character class. So if you imagine places like Akaros, where the Death Knights kind of all sort of assemble, this is something like that, but for every single character class in the game in a way that's very iconic to that class. So this is the place where you go in order to customize your artifact. It's the place where you go to rally your class to take on the Burning Legion. So I would say the Legion boasts one of the most significant changes to the player versus player combat that we've had since the Burning Crusade. And back in the Burning Crusade, we introduced the arena system, and that really represented a significant new thing for players to do. But now what we're doing is we're introducing a completely new version of the honor system. And what we've really seen is that the system is really, it's ready. It's ready for a fresh new take, for something that creates a completely new vector of progression, where a player is able to unlock the different talents in the new honor system in order to get abilities that are specific to PvP. And so this new talent system really enables us to do that. What we're really looking at here is a deeper set of gameplay features and a deeper set of gameplay content than what we've ever created before for an expansion. We really believe that that'll lead to a more fun version of World of Warcraft.
So much to take in about World of Warcraft Legion.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to have the Legion game systems panel coming up here in just a few minutes. But Michelle, what is the thing that you're the most excited about to learn about? I mean, is it class order halls? Is it the artifact weapon? Is it the new class design?
That's like making me pick one of my babies, Alex. That's so difficult. This is my favorite game of all time. For me, I think class order halls is really cool.
Big deal.
I really liked the way that Garrison started in Warlords of Draenor.
Yeah.
And then it's sort of, you lost the world. And that's kind of the point, is that this is World of Warcraft, and you loved when you went to your home city and you felt like you saw everybody around, some boom chicken dancing on a mailbox, whatever. But the thing is that it felt like a world. I love that what we're doing is bringing back the fantasy of the class, and saying like, hey, if you're a hunter, all the hunters go here. If you're a priest, all the priests go here. Just like how they have with the DKs. So it's awesome to me. And it's cool too, because it creates class community
Yes.
And there's a lot of very big class pride that goes on with World of Warcraft. So, you know, something like Hunters, myself, I can speak specifically, is we have the Warcraft Hunters Union. And there's all these hunters that get together. There's even a podcast and everything, but we're talking 600 hunters would get together.
That's a lot of
on
hunters.
one server. We actually crashed. We crashed one of the servers because we went and raided Thunderbluff.
Oh,
My little horde heart died inside, but it was an all-dwarven raid. It was neat, though, because it inspired the fact that, you know, although we didn't have any healers with us, could we as hunters all come together and do something massive?
And they haven't talked
Take down a
about,
boss.
they also haven't talked about where these class order halls are going to exist. I mean, as a hunter, you can imagine going out into the wilderness and having this location that potentially only hunters can go to, and having this sort of like camp, you know.
I know, I'm thinking
commune with
original
nature.
Rangers and, you know, and very like Elven, and I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say exactly where everything is going to end up.
Druid, so I had a druid for a very long time, still do, obviously. But with druids was Moonglade or Moon?
Yep.
I think it was Moonglade. Which was this location that you could only get to. I mean, you could get there. But
they're spoiled.
Because druids are spoiled. But it was so great because you would go. And the other thing that they've talked about is that it's non-denominational, as they say. Right? You are going to see Horde, you're going to see Alliance. But I feel like it allows you to have that sort of semi-camaraderie of the like, look, we're all shooting arrows at people.
Yeah.
You know, we're all slinging our cannon.
Well, I'm just wondering how much we're going to see community come together through class because of these class order halls.
Yeah, and how much time you need to spend in there. I mean, there's a lot of information about them that we don't know. It was great when Corey was talking about the fact that, you know, they're not going to force you into this sort of, oh my God, it's 5 a.m. I got to make sure I get in and do my dailies.
Right,
otherwise, I got to go to work. You know what I mean? The fact that it's less about touching it every day. But also, we don't know exactly what you have to do in there, so you don't know exactly, you know, are the professions going to be done in there? We haven't even talked about. They haven't even talked about professions.
I am dying for a profession revamp. That's for sure, because they used to be so important to min-max your character. Yeah, if somebody in my raid didn't have their character min-maxed with their professions, I was like, you're not raiding until that's completely done because you're going to get extra stats.
Dude, I made so much money on flasks, it wasn't even funny. And now it's like, you can do it with a flask, or yeah, it's all right.
And it'll be interesting, too, to see Demon Hunters. I mean, they only have 2 specs. That's it.
Huge. All right, well, a lot of those questions are going to be answered right now. We're sending you into Hall D for the World of Warcraft Legion's Game Systems panel.
I'm so excited!
Welcome to the World of Warcraft Legion Game Systems panel.
Hello, BlizzCon! Welcome to the World of Warcraft Game Systems panel. We have an hour-long information overload that we're going to do for you, and hopefully we have enough time to do it, so we're going to get started right away. Today we're going to talk to you about items, we're going to talk to you about professions, classes, the Demon Hunter, but first, Mr. Craig Amai is going to walk you through artifacts and class halls. Craig.
Hello, BlizzCon. Everyone having a good time today? Awesome. So my name is Craig Amai. I've been heading up the artifact feature for Legion. I know a few of you probably got glimpses at some of the artifacts at Gamescom. What I want to do for you today is I want to dive a lot deeper into the system and kind of show you what it's going to be like to play with an artifact. To do that, I'm going to focus on one specific artifact first. This is not that artifact. Nah, I don't really think it's going to cut it either. Okay. Here we go. This is the Deadwind Harvester. This is a scythe created by Sargeras, given to the first Necrolite that he sent to Azeroth. It earned its name and its reputation in part by purging much of the life from Deadwind Pass. Affliction Warlocks are going to be hunting down this scythe and making it their own for Legion. So at the start of the expansion, as a Warlock, you're going to get together with the Council of the Black Harvest, and you're going to open a gateway to one of the Legion's bases deep within the Nether. Things don't exactly go according to plan there, but you do manage to steal a little bit of information about some artifacts that the Legion knows about back on Azeroth, the Deadwood Harvester being one of them. So, using that information, you go to Duskwood. You follow the trail of the Dark Riders of Karazhan through Deadwind Pass, and you end up uncovering a series of catacombs beneath Karazhan that somehow evaded our notice to this time. So in those catacombs, you confront the leader of the Dark Riders, and you take the Deadwind Harvester and make it your own. From the moment you have your hands on the scythe, you're going to start feeling some of its effects in combat. This is a soul-stealing weapon, so every time you kill something, the scythe surges with power, and your spells do increase damage for a time. On top of that, the souls within the scythe, they're kind of restless, so every now and then one of them will try and break free and escape, and you can easily reap that soul, gaining the same benefits as if you had killed something fresh. So that acts kind of as a way of reinforcing the fantasy of the weapon, but also as a mechanic that can help you out in certain environments like arenas and raid encounters where you don't readily have many things to kill. So, scythe in hand, you head out to the Broken Isles. In the Broken Isles, you start accruing artifact power from a number of different sources. So artifact power is a sort of resource that you will eventually use to unlock new abilities within your weapon. It comes from many different sources. It comes from quest bosses and rare spawns. It comes from special items that you find and break open and release the power from to absorb into your weapon. It also comes from things like arenas and battlegrounds. So basically, whatever types of activities you're participating in Legion, you're going to be gathering artifact power along the way, and you're going to be growing your weapon alongside you. So gain enough artifact power, and you can unlock a new trait in your artifact tree. This is kind of a glimpse at the Deadwind Harvester's trait tree. That first ability you're seeing there, that's the one I talked about. You don't actually need to spend artifact power to unlock that. You start with that. The first thing you're actually going to use your artifact power to unlock is an active trait, an ability that you're actually going to put on your bar and use to unleash the power of your weapon against your enemies. So in the case of the Deadwind Harvester, that's this. You release the souls from the scythe. They swirl around your enemy, and they do massively ramping damage over time. So it's sort of super dot, long duration, long cooldown. So you use it on really meaty targets like quest bosses and raid bosses. After you unlock that first major active trait, your tree's going to open up to you, and you're going to start seeing options about which direction you want to pursue. You'll be making choices like the difference between increasing the critical strike chance on Unstable Affliction or the burst damage on Seed of Corruption, so single target versus AoE. These minor traits, they have multiple ranks, and you have to unlock typically all 3 ranks to progress further into the tree. There are some special one-point traits within the tree as well that usually are more utility-focused. In the case of Deadwind Harvester, there's one that causes your health stone to become a full heal and causes you to yield some health back whenever anyone in your party or raid uses a health stone as well. What's really going to be influencing where you go in these trees are major traits at the far extents of the tree. These are typically a bit more transformative, a bit more powerful. They'll modify or add on to major class abilities within your kit, or sometimes to the core artifact ability itself. So in the case of Deadwind Harvester, one of those traits makes every soul you reap explode in Shadow Flame damage, hurting everything around it. There's one for the Retribution Paladins for Ashbringer that causes your Divine Storm to unleash a whirlwind of holy energy in front of you, creating some directionality to your primary AoE button. So eventually you will be able to unlock every single trait within this tree, but it's going to take a while. That first active trait you'll get almost immediately. You'll unlock that shortly after obtaining the weapon. You'll get to the first gold power probably shortly before max level, major trait, shortly before max level. The rest of the tree, it's likely going to take you months into expansion to fully unfold all of these things. And even on top of that, there's some incremental power increases that you can continue to pour artifact power into over time. So your weapon will be growing with you for the entirety of Legion. So you're also going to be seeing a new type of item dropping out in the Broken Isles and in all of Legion, relics. These are special items that you can socket into your artifact to increase its power. So they increase power in a couple of ways. They increase the item level of the weapon, increasing its stats, and they increase it by higher item levels for higher quality relics further into the expansion. But they also give you bonus ranks in those traits that I was talking about. So whereas normally you'd only be able to get 3 ranks in increasing your Shadow Bolt damage, you can get a relic that could increase that to 4 or 5 ranks and further specialize on doing more damage in Shadow Bolt specifically. So this kind of gives you a form of specialization or customization for the types of gameplay that you are most interested in. Do you want to be more about burst AoE damage or more about your primary single target rotation on raid bosses? Or do you do a lot of PvP and you want to focus on your survivability abilities a little bit more? Those relics over time will eventually actually be able to tap into those major traits as well, taking something that was normally only 1 rank and allowing you to increase its power too. So these relics come in many different types. If you look at the top of the Deadwind Harvester here, you'll see 2 symbols. Those indicate the types that the Deadwind Harvester can accept. So one of those is a Shadow slot, one of those is a Fel slot. There are many other different types of relics: fire relics, water relics, earth relics. The Ashbringer has a slot for a Holy and a Fire. So different people are going to be seeking out different relics in Legion. Now, you have your artifact in hand for a while, and you will eventually, once you reach max level 110 in Legion, you'll reach a moment when you can upgrade it. You'll undergo a quest line involving some outdoor content, interacting with some of the major factions of Legion, and some dungeon content, culminating in this major upgrade moment. At this moment, you'll unlock an additional relic slot for your weapon, further increasing the specialization options available to you. But you'll also unlock a new model for your weapon as well. In the case of Deadwind Harvester, this is what the upgrade model looks like. So even past that, there are more quest lines you're going to be able to tap into, specializing in different types of content that will give you access to other models for your weapon over time. A Deadwind Harvester has a few more that you can see up here. And even beyond these models, we also have many different colors you can unlock for each model based off the same types of content that it focused on originally. You can kind of see the interface for what some of those color swaps might look like for the Deadwind Harvester. So these come in the form of more like achievements. Finish all of the questing zones or earn exalted with certain factions in the expansion. That might unlock certain colors. But they'll also tap into aspects of the artifact's history as well. So there might be a specific color that is unlocked by slaying a villain who previously killed one of the owners that had this artifact before you did, or going to locations in the world that are significant to your weapon specifically. So that's a pretty good overview of artifact systems. There's a lot of things I haven't talked about here, specifically when it comes to the personality of the individual weapons and how you're going to feel them in the world. But I've talked a lot about Deadwind Harvester. I want to give you guys a little bit of a glimpse of some of the other artifacts you're going to see in Legion. So we have a video for you. Enjoy. I agree. Okay, so I know a few of you probably thought you were done with me after that, but my team is also heading up class halls for this expansion, so I've got some more details to share with you today. Class halls, you may have also heard them referred to as order halls sometimes. Those are actually the same thing, class halls, order halls. For class halls, before I dive fully into some of the things you can expect to see inside of them, I want to talk first about some of the major goals we had in identifying which class hall we would give to each class this expansion. Our first big goal was that whatever location we chose, it was really important to us that you feel like your class when you're inside of it, that you feel like a warrior or a mage or a warlock when you're in that space. And that really is to say, like, you think of a place like Frey Island for warriors. It's a place that's very significant to warriors who've been around a while as a place where they got their berserker stance originally. It's got a lot of significance to them. But Frey Island, ultimately, it's a desert island with some wooden buildings on it. So it doesn't quite meet the cut for what we're trying to achieve with class halls. We want you to feel more like a warrior when you're in that space. Our second major goal was that whatever groups we were going to bring together around these class halls, they should welcome in the greatest breadth of class fantasy possible into that space. Using warriors again as an example, some warriors see themselves as the barbarian or the berserker with rippling muscles, solving their problems with strength instead of words. Other warriors see themselves as the gleaming knight with silver armor, crested shield, fighting for what is right. And yet other warriors see themselves as the grizzled veteran of the battlefield, fighting with dual blades and practice strikes. And all of those are absolutely warriors, and they should all feel at home within this space. So we want to make sure whatever groups we're bringing together, they do that. They bring them all in and make them all feel like a part of this effort. Lastly, these class orders are forming around the threat of the Legion. They are stepping up when the conflicts between the Alliance and Horde are rising, and they are fighting the demonic hordes. They're acting on the front lines. So the groups we're putting forward for this, it's really critical that they have every reason to be that force that stands against the Legion. That again spells the difference between some old groups you may recognize and the new groups we put together to focus on these efforts. So I have to warn you guys ahead of time, I'm not going to be able to show you every single class hall during this presentation. I really want to, but I cannot. We just have too many awesome things to talk about today. So I'm going to show you one class hall. I'm going to talk about how we identified the location. And I'm also going to give you some glimpses at a few others as we talk about the features you can expect to see inside of them. So do I have any druids in the audience today? Hello, druids. So druids are one of the few classes that kind of had a class hall already. Like Moonglade is one of the very first places we thought of when we were trying to identify all the locations for all the various classes. And Moonglade, it gets pretty close to hitting a lot of our goals up there. It welcomes in a very large variety of druids, and I can see the forces of Moonglade standing against the Legion. I think it could do a better job immersing druids in nature, surrounding them with the natural elements you expect from being a druid. I also think that it could create a better home for cat druids and bear druids. It could show the influences of the Emerald Dream better around you. That's something that's really critical to the druid fantasy. So there's some opportunities, but it gets close. Moonglade is right there. At the same time, we have a unique opportunity this expansion. We're going to the Broken Isles. We're going to the forests of Val-Shara, where druidism was essentially born within Azeroth, to a place where many of the most ancient Night Elves and Tauren basically invented the class for us. So we decided this expansion, we're going to give druids the Dream Grove. The Dream Grove is a place where the fabric between the Emerald Dream and Azeroth is at its thinnest, and you can feel the influence of the dream all around you. It's a secret sanctum, well, not so secret now that I'm telling millions of people. It's a sanctum for druids only that no other classes are allowed into. And it's a place where we can accomplish a lot of those things that we couldn't in Moonglade to fully surround you with nature and give a home for some of those other aspects of druidism in a more direct form. So this is going to be where druids are going to be calling home for this expansion, Dream Grove. So let's start talking really fast about some of the other features you can expect to see in class halls, some of the things that you can expect to be interacting with really regularly. So within your class hall, you're going to find a special shrine or altar that you bring your artifact to unlock new traits and swap appearances. It takes different forms for each class. For druids, it takes the form of a tree that grows in front of you, forms a pool of water. You lay your weapon upon it, and you can modify it. In the case of shaman, it's a stone altar on the precipice of the maelstrom that's struck by lightning as you place your weapon down. As you wander your class halls, you can also expect to see your class champions within the space. Now, class champions are a very different breed from the garrison followers you may be used to from Draenor. They're typically much bigger figures, some of them leaders of factions in their own right, and they have a lot more personality. You're going to unfold their backstories over time as you interact with them, and you're going to see them in the world a lot more significantly than you did your followers in your garrison. Within your class halls, you're also going to be interacting very regularly with your scouting map. So this is a new portal to content for Legion. You're going to go to it initially to choose which zone you want to start your questing experience in, but it's also going to continue to expose new content to you over time deep into the max level experience. So you'll be coming to it very regularly. There's also going to be a fair variety of different types of class content you can expect to see within your class halls. Some of that takes the form of those major artifact lines I was talking about earlier that will unlock new appearances for your spec-specific weapons. But there's also intermittent little flavorful things for specific classes. There's demon hunting quests and pickpocket quests that you can expect to see, and I'll let you guess which class each one of those goes with. We also have a very large variety of different features and bonuses that we're putting inside these halls. Some of them shared among many classes, like armor stands to let you show off previous tier sets that you've gained from other raid content. But also a variety of kind of larger, more functional features. The hunters have a lodge in a high mountain where they have a special relationship with the giant eagles that are out in that space. And they can, the giant eagles give them access to a special flight network that no one else has. The druids of Dreamgrove, they have access to the Dreamway, which is a pathway through the Emerald Dream, or I guess more appropriately, the Emerald Nightmare at this point, that lets them reach many other natural places in the world very quickly. And warriors in their class hall, they have an arena where they can spar with NPCs and other warriors for bragging rights. So really this expansion, you kind of have two different social locations. You've got your class halls where you'll be interacting with other members of your class regularly, and you have Dalaran, which is going to have many of the features that you're used to from a major city, things like auction house, bank, mailbox, profession quests. Two different places for you to spam Thunder Fury and chat. So to make getting back and forth between those spaces a little bit easier, every class is going to have their own kind of different brand of Deathgate to let them get to their class hall quickly and get back to where they came from afterwards. So in the case of Hunters, it's a giant eagle that comes and picks you up that can take you back and forth. So that's class halls. I've been talking to you a long time, and we've got a lot more things to share with you today. So I'm going to go ahead and pass this off to Jonathan LeCraft.
Thank you, Craig. And hello to all you beautiful people. Now, before I get rolling here, let me just ask a question. Is there anyone here who's excited to play the Demon Hunter? All right, me too. You can actually go play it right now. What are you guys doing here? So let's just dive in. Like, what is this class about? Well, the Demon Hunter it's a dark hero. And I mean, these guys, they've sacrificed their souls just to fight a threat that most people don't even know exists. They are a melee class. They wear leather armor, not often on the shirt area. And they take the weapons of the enemy and they use it against them. So, warglaives, fell magic, sculpted biceps, everything. And they look good. And speaking of, let's just talk for a second about character customization. As you can see, you can choose your horns, your blindfold, your tattoos, custom skin textures. All that stuff's on top of your regular customization options too. And something I don't think maybe a lot of people have noticed yet is we did actually record, we wrote and record new VO for Demon Hunters. And that's things like train and flirt and silly. And unlike me, some of them are even funny. All right, so what's the point of looking good if you can't kick some ass, right? Havoc. Now this is the fast-paced melee DPS spec with an emphasis on mobility. And their motto is fight fire with more fire. These guys, they have their own custom resource, Fury. And I think if I were to describe Fury, I'd say it's like Rage. But, you know, you throw in a little bit of smoldering hatred and a splash of purple, and voila. But but really though, it's your classic builder spender. You know, you build it up with the small attacks, you use it on the big attacks. Pretty straightforward. So let's talk about how you use Fury. All right. So first up, Demon's Bite. I just want to kind of highlight some of these abilities here. It actually generates a random amount of Fury. And then you've got its big brother here, Chaos Strike. This is your spender. But the cool thing about Chaos Strike is it doesn't actually spend any Fury when you critically strike with it. So between those two abilities, you have a lot of variation in your core combat, just enough to keep you on your toes. And then lastly here, Throw Glaive. This is your ranged attack. Its Fury cost has actually been replaced with a short cooldown, so you can always use it at the beginning of a fight. In addition, there's no minimum range, and it can hit multiple targets. So a lot of places you might actually end up using that, you know, AE or even in melee. Anyhow, I have a short video I want to show you guys. It just shows off some of the glaive animations, and there's a cool attack right at the end. Yeah. So that last ability is called Blade Dance. Right now it's a talent, although we've been talking about maybe moving that to core functionality. All right. Well, we talked about mobility earlier, so let's dive into how we actually accomplish that for the Demon Hunter. And first up, we've got double jump. I think this one kind of speaks for itself. Yeah. All right. But then we've got double jump's buddy, and that's glide. And you can think of this as it's basically like your own personal goblin glider. I guess everyone's goblin glider is personal, but with demon wings. And the cool thing about both of these is they can be activated with the jump key. So they're not taking up any room on your bar. And then lastly, Vengeful Retreat, Fell Rush. Okay, so these clearly have a lot of damage and utility you're going to use in your regular combat. But two things to note is that they don't require a target, and they can be done while you're in the air. And just to kind of, I just want to show you guys how you might move around with these when you're outside of combat. Yeah, all right. I don't know if you guys know that game, The Floor is Lava, but they are really good at it, even with literal lava. Okay. Fell Magic, yes. Now this is where we're getting into some real power, the real punch. I mean, first up, you got Chaos Nova. And this is your nuclear level CC, you know, AE stun, 5 seconds, has a big chunk of damage on top, just as a nice little kicker. And you got I-Beam. This is a very powerful frontal cone attack. A little bit of a skill shot. There's about a 2-second channel, and you can't move, but you can rotate, and it's got pretty good range. And then lastly, Consume Magic. I would call this a medium range interrupt. And the little bonus on this one is when you do interrupt someone, you get a full bar of Fury. And you can do whatever you want with that. Treat yourself. Okay, so I have a video for I-beam. Yes. All right, let's take a look at that. All right. So, as you just saw with I-beam, and this is the same with Chaos Nova, actually, the inner demon kind of comes out and says, hey. Now, with Metamorphosis, that demon comes out and murders everyone. So it starts with this epic leap, slam down on the ground. You transform in the air, by the way, stun everybody around you. Your damage is increased, Fury's coming in hot, and oh yeah, you have 100% life leech while this is active. And what that means is you get a ton of defensibility, but it's through offense, which is very much the Demon Hunter vibe. Now let me just show you guys that leap that I'm talking about real quick, and roll it. All right, yeah. Night, by the way, that is, I don't know if you noticed at the end, you keep all your mobility in that form, obviously. You got wings, it makes sense, right? So, Spectral Sight. Now this is the ability that lets you see through your Demon Hunter's eyes, or eye sockets, I guess. And what that means is that enemies can't escape your gaze. It means you see through invisibility and stealth, and even through physical barriers. And just to kind of show you what I mean by that last part, I do have another video. All right, yeah. Hey, we even got a little sneak peek of Throw Glaive in there too. And that, by the way, they're moving kind of slow in that video because we did have a huge snare on there that's been reduced already. Yay, buffs, they're happening. So, and by the way, that ability is available for both specs. And so, second spec I want to talk about is Vengeance. Little bit of bad news that I don't have a ton of abilities to show you or like really heavy duty details because it is still in development. But there is a few things I can talk about. First up, this spec is a Demon Inquisitor, which means they've really mastered the art of extracting information from the enemy. And they do this by inflicting pain through fire. So, you know, you've got Flame Whip, and you've got Firebrand, and Immolation Aura, of course. And in doing so, like, with this close proximity to demons, they have also picked up a lot of protective spells. Some of those are disruptive, some of them protect the Demon Hunter, some of them even protect other people. And then on top of that, you know, we've got the Glaives, and we're kind of looking at some parry stuff. Anyways, I don't want to talk about too much stuff that's not really in yet. And then lastly, they of course have their own Metamorphosis, and this is going to be very different from the other one. This will be a very strong defensive cooldown, not necessarily tied to offense because you don't always have that option as a tank. But you know, kind of look at it, you think of it almost as like an immovable object. And what's really great about this form is it lends itself naturally to a lot of modifications through talents and artifact traits and the like. And that's unfortunately all I have for you guys today. But I am going to pass it off to Chris Zierhut, and he's going to tell you about all the rest of the classes. Thank you.
Hello, BlizzCon. It's great to be back here again. I'm the lead class designer on World of Warcraft. I'm going to tell you a little bit about class changes for Legion. And Craig told you a lot about what we're doing with class fantasy and really delving into the fantasies with your class order halls, with your artifacts. We felt for class design, this was the perfect time to take a hard look at our classes and make sure they really deliver on the fantasy that they're about. So that was our goal, was to strengthen class and specialization fantasies. Now, what exactly makes a strong class fantasy? What does that even mean? We thought about it a lot, and it came down to three things for us in World of Warcraft. First, the class feels immersive. You feel like everything you do is completely involved in what that class is about. The abilities you're using, the names, the abilities, the animations, how they work together, it's all about that theme. They're distinct. They feel completely different from each other. Each class, each spec has some mechanic, some ability, some capability that nobody else has that's unique to them. And they're empowering. You feel like your character is powerful, you have total control over what you're doing, you can accomplish these things you set out to do, use your abilities the way you want to use them. It doesn't mean you're overpowered, you can just destroy everything, but that you have total control of your character. So, how do we go about making some of our classes a little bit more empowering? One great example of a place that wasn't empowering our game was Death Knight runes. You've got 6 runes of 3 different types. You also have death runes, and they all have different cooldowns and when they're coming up and when you have them, and you can't push the button you want to push when you want to push it because you're waiting on that rune to come back, or crap, I screwed up and I don't have the death rune I needed. So we cleaned all that up. There is now one type of rune. You still have 6 of them. The way you use your abilities together still matters, but you don't have to worry about staring at the UI. Instead, you're using the ability you want to use when you want to use it. Another great example is with the Fury Warrior. Right now, Fury Warrior is completely controlled by how many charges they have. You've got Enrage Up, you've got Raging Blow charges, you've got Meat Cleaver charges, you're tracking the UI, keeping track of all these buffs to decide what you can do when. Cleaned all that up. When you push Whirlwind, your ability's AoE for several seconds afterward. No need to pay attention to Meat Cleaver anymore. When you're enraged, you can use Raging Blow as much as you want. There's no more Raging Blow charges. So we clean that up. You're not staring at the UI to figure out what you can do. In general, we took that step of anywhere there was a stacking buff or debuff that was controlling how your character worked, we tried to either eliminate it from the game as much as possible or actually turned it into a resource. And that's what we did with Arcane. Arcane charges are now a resource in addition to mana, instead of being this little buff you have to look at in the far right corner of your screen. On top of that, we really felt like Arcane was a spec that had a really strong fantasy, but when you actually played it, you didn't feel powerful. What it came down to is there's a very specific sequence. I push this button and this button and this button very, very carefully, and if you screw it up and pushed Arcane Blast a few too many times, now you're stuck for the whole rest of the fight. You're not, you've spent too much mana, you're not very powerful. The way Arcane mana worked is the more mana you have, the more damage you did. If you spent too much mana, now you're not very good. So we said, let's keep Arcane the way it is, but let's try to fix that problem. So their new mastery, it's called Savant. What it does is it increases how much mana you have, which works really well into how Arcane works, because if they have more mana, they can spend more mana on Arcane Blast, they can do more blasts. So the higher your mastery gets, the more often you can do that heavy burst damage. But even more importantly, because your mana level doesn't matter anymore, you can do it when you want to do it. You've got control of your character again. In addition, it also increases how much damage the Arcane charges increase your Arcane Blast and their spells by. I want to talk to you a little bit about how we made the classes more distinct. Survival Hunter. You probably heard Ian Hazzikostas at Gamescom hint they were going to have the Eagle Spear as their artifact. Well, it's a spear. That's a melee weapon, right? So going back to old 2004 World of Warcraft, Survival Hunter is going to be a melee spec, going toe-to-toe in melee combat with their enemies, with their beasts fighting side by side with them with a spear. Abilities like Harpoon, Raptor Strike, Mongoose Bite, Lacerate, all that stuff you remember back, but actually awesome this time. We took a hard look at the Discipline Priests. They really have always felt a little bit too much like just sort of a different flavor of the Holy Priest and didn't have enough of their own unique, distinct mechanics. They have Power Word Shield, and that's cool and that's fun, but that's too narrow. There's not enough there. So we decided to make them really different from other healers. They have this other mechanic called Atonement. We decided to double down on Atonement. It is now their core healing mechanic. The way they heal is by dealing damage to their enemies. And that's how they get their primary means of healing. Very different from Holy. Similarly, our rogues always kind of felt similar to each other. In particular, Subtlety has this really cool, strong fantasy of being the master of shadows, the ninja, who teleports from place to place, moves around the battlefield. How could we strengthen that and make that even more distinct from the others? They have this really cool ability called Shadow Dance. It's a cooldown that lets them use their openers over and over again. But is there a better version of Shadow Dance? So we redesigned Shadow Dance. It's now a passive ability. Every time you do a finishing move, you have a 20% chance per combo point to re-enter stealth. And that stealth does not break from taking damage. So you have a chance to figure out what you want to do a new opener, do that core routine that every rogue really wants to do. You do your opener, your combos, your finishers, and repeat. No other rogue gets to do that. It's very distinct and different. To add further to that, we added one of my favorite new abilities because it really feeds off Shadow Dance. It's called Shadow Strike. What it is it lets them teleport to a target anywhere in the battlefield and do ambush level damage to that target as an opener. So you're fighting away at a target, you cheap shot, do some combos, do a finisher, teleport across the room, beat up that guy, they all come for you, you teleport again somewhere else. You're a true ninja, moving around wherever you want to be. It's going to be a lot of fun. Along the way, some generic rogue abilities, things that were cool but not really part of that fantasy got removed, like Honor Among Thieves, but it's been replaced by things that are much more central to that fantasy. Finally, I want to talk to you about how we made the game more immersive. Let's start with the Demonology Warlock. So we think back to Warcraft, Orcs versus Humans. Warlocks were about summoning demons and using them to destroy the Alliance, right? Somehow over the years, we kind of got lost from that on the Demonology Warlock. They're about turning into a demon. They should be about summoning demons, hordes of demons to destroy their enemies. So we completely redesigned the Demonology Warlock. They have more new minions to summon than ever before. Buffing them and sending those minions out to attack is a core part of their combat rotation. But they're not about turning into a demon anymore. Metamorphosis is really the domain of the Demon Hunter, but Demonology has even more cool stuff to replace it. A similar example can be found with the Guardian Druid. You imagine a Guardian Druid, they should be like a grizzly bear, this giant wall of flesh and fur and bone that you just can't get past. It's immovable. But instead, they're all about dodging from place to place. Like, this doesn't make any sense. So they're no longer the dodgy circus bear. They're all about increased health, increased armor, increased survivability, and being what people really imagine them to be. Finally, on the topic of immersive, we took a hard look at the Shadow Priests. They always kind of felt like the poor cousin of the Affliction Warlock. They've got lots of cool things. They've got mind abilities, they've got damage over time, they've got vampiric abilities, but they don't really fit together into a cohesive whole. So we thought, well, what is a Shadow Priest really about? They're about tapping into the powers of the Void. And who controls the Void but the old gods? And working with the power of the old gods, that causes you to, well, if you think about the Cho'Gall encounter or fighting Yogg-Saron, you slowly lose your mind. You go insane. So the new resource for Shadow Priests is insanity. They no longer have mana or shadow orbs. They tap into the power of insanity, gradually going more and more insane and using that as a source of energy. Their shadow form gets darker and darker. They start to grow tentacles from out of their body until they transform into void form. As insanity builds, they get stronger and stronger. As they enter void form, they get more and more powerful the longer they can stay there. But insanity was not meant for mortal men to control. They can only hold on for so long. Their insanity slowly drains away, but the more insanity they can generate while they're there, the longer they can stay there, the more powerful they get. So they have ultimate but fleeting power they have control over. Before I go, I'd like to talk a little bit about talents. We have one of our biggest talent revisions we've done since Mists of Pandaria. Still the same format, 7 rows with 3 things in them. But we've gotten rid of a lot of those theme rows. You know where there's a row that says pick AoE1 or AoE2 or AoE3. It's really all kind of the same thing. And it doesn't really feel that cool. Now those will be in different rows from each other. There's more choices that matter. There's more ways to customize your character. And there's more talents that are specific to your spec, not shared with the other 2 or 3. And as a result, that means there are literally hundreds of new talents coming out in Legion. More talents than there have ever been in any previous expansion. One last comment. I'm going to be over at the Darkmoon Fair later this afternoon if you have questions about this. And starting tomorrow, there's going to be a series of blogs detailing every single one of our classes and specs, what their core abilities are now, some examples of some of their talents that are coming, so you can get a sense of what's coming soon as we move into beta. With that, I'm going to hand it to Paul Cubitt to talk about professions.
Hello. Hello. Hey, great. Thanks, Chris. My name's Paul. I'm a game designer on World of Warcraft, and today I'm going to talk about professions. So let's get right into it. So the biggest thing we wanted to do in Legion as far as professions are concerned is to give you more stuff to do. What does that mean? Well, it means, I'll paint you a picture. Let's say it's Sunday afternoon, you log into WoW, you got a couple hours to kill. but you're not really feeling that quest line you were working on, your raid doesn't, you don't do raids on Sundays, you kind of just want to work on your alchemy or your blacksmithing. Well, we think you should be able to do that, and we don't want to hold you back from doing that. So the first way we're going to attack that is with recipe acquisition. So gone are the days when you kind of log into a new expansion and you find your trainer and, okay, click, 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 click. Okay, I know every recipe I need to know for the entire expansion. I mean, some of that's okay, trainers are still good, but we also want you to get out in the world and kind of carve your own path, find some recipes your friends haven't found yet, meet some cool characters, go on adventures. Now, an example of how that might look is in the case of tailoring. As a tailor, you'll go to Dalaran, your adventure starts there, you meet your trainer, she wants to find out what kind of cloth they have in the Broken Isles, and it is cloth this time, it's not fur, so you go down in the world. I thought fur was cool, but you get some cloth, you bring it back and you start to sew with her, you start to make a robe, but the cloth is rejecting the thread you're putting in, it's falling apart, it's making a huge mess. You need to find someone who knows how to work with this material. So you go out in the world into one of our new zones, Azuna, and you meet Lindris. Lindris is Nightfallen, which means he's an exiled member of the Nightborn tribe of elves. Nightfallen typically have issues with magical cravings. But anyways, he's very friendly. He helps you with your sewing problem. He teaches you a bunch of new patterns. He's also very interested in that magical floating city in the sky you came from. And a lot of the rest of your quest line deals with continuing to learn patterns from Lindris, dealing with the aftermath of bringing him to a city of temptation, and then eventually going to Suramar and kind of finding out why he was exiled and why his people got so good at tailoring. Now, this kind of recipe acquisition isn't simply limited to crafters. Gatherers get a lot of love, too. As a miner, for example, you'll be learning from characters like Rethu here. He's dead, you could tell. He's also very into mining. But from characters like him and others, you'll learn how to more efficiently mine some of the new materials, like laystone, one of our new ores. While I'm on the subject of gathering, I want to share a story with you guys. I was out gathering herbs on my character a couple weeks back, and I saw an herb I wanted to pick, so I started running towards it. And then this druid came down and kind of picked it right in front of me and then flew away. He didn't even say anything. Has this happened to anybody else, too? I think it's the same guy. Well, that's not going to happen anymore in Legion, because mining nodes and herbalism nodes will be shared. So the druid gets the herb, I get the herb, my friend who's out gathering herbs with me gets the herb, everybody's happy. So, okay, you've gone through the mining or tailoring or whatever the recipe acquisition is. You've learned all your recipes, you're done, right? Well, you can be if you want to, sure, but if you're really interested in continuing to work on your professions, like I said, we don't want to hold you back from doing that. So we have the concept of recipe ranks, where there's 2-star and 3-star recipes out in the world, some of which are very rare and prestigious. You can go hunt down and earn, and they'll make you more efficient at making the things you already know how to make. Here's an example of how that looks in our UI. So you can see this guy, he's got a 2-star rating in Binding and Mastery there, and one, actually, you know what, this UI is starting to look a little cramped and maybe a little dated. Let's just blow it out a little bit. Much better, okay. So maybe a long overdue update to the trade skill UI, but yes, you have the bigger list of recipes on the left, details of the selected recipe on the right. A couple things I want to point out to you. There's also a favorites list up at top, so maybe you're that alchemist who says, I just make flasks, man, that's all I do. Great. You can take those 1 or 2 flasks you make every week, pull them up to the top. You don't have to look through 400 potions anymore. I also want to point out that there's a learned and an unlearned tab as well. So now you'll be able to see the list of recipes you don't know, as well as details of where to find them. You can complete that collection. Now, going back to those 2-star and 3-star recipes, those are mostly going to give you efficiency. You're going to get more efficient, craft with fewer materials, less time, and so on. If you want to make something more powerful, then you need something called Obliterum. Now, Obliterum is this demonic ash or dust that you can use to increase the power level of your crafted items. And interestingly, it comes from crafted items. So I'll explain. Once you hit level 110, you're going to stumble upon a quest line which will culminate in you building this big, radical, Demon Hunter-inspired forge in the middle of Dalaran called the Obliterum Forge. And you can use that to convert crafted items you no longer want or need into Obliterum. Maybe you're a jewel crafter, and you want to make yourself a ring with just the right stats for you. So you make a ring, and of course it has the wrong stats. So you do make again, and 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rings until you've got the one, the exact ring you wanted. Perfect. You put it on, seems to fit all right. Now with these other 6 rings, you could vendor them, sure. You could sell them on the auction house, or now you could take them to the Obliterum Forge, convert them into Obliterum, and use that to increase the power level of the ring you're already wearing. So bringing it all back. It's Sunday afternoon. You got this time to spend. If you haven't learned all your recipes, well, you can go on an adventure. Go complete your recipe acquisition. If you have already learned all your recipes, well, you can go hunt down some of those 2-star, 3-star recipes that are hidden out there in the world. Or if you just want to make more powerful gear for yourself or your guildies, well, you can do that too. And also turn it into Obliterum, make your gear more powerful. Plenty of stuff to do. You shouldn't be running out of content. Let's talk about some of the things you'll be making. We want crafted gear to feel special. It shouldn't just be a carbon copy of raid gear. One of the places I think we've done that pretty well in the past is in the case of engineering goggles. They don't feel like normal helms, and this expansion is no different. This time they're made out of guns and gun parts. So there's actually like a gun here, and a scope here, and a trigger here. And the reason why you'll find out when you play through the quest line as an engineer. But as a result, you can shoot bullets at enemies with your head, which already feels very different than any other helm in the game. Different doesn't always mean adding a clicky effect. Take, for example, this necklace here. All high-level necklaces and rings made by jewel crafters have a guaranteed gem slot in them, which is already different than anywhere else in the game. And it's also smart of the jewel crafter, right? Because they can sell you the gem along with it. Like, would you like some crit with that? But in addition, this particular neck has a class-specific buff on it. This is for a warrior. So if you're a warrior, you want to get that buff. One of the best ways to do that is to hunt out a jewel crafter or be one yourself. Let's talk about inscription. Where are my scribes at? Hi, scribes. Okay, in Legion, there's going to be a lot of ways that you can customize the way that your character plays. We have all those talents that Chris talked about. We have PvP talents, which we didn't talk about today. We have the artifact and the artifact traits. All these are going to greatly affect the way that your character's rotation works. And with all this customization in place, glyphs were starting to feel a little redundant. So in Legion, we've removed major glyphs from the game. They no longer exist. I can already hear like murmurs from scribes going, no, my cash flow, why are you punishing us? Well, we're still thinking about you guys, don't worry. First of all, you still make the powerful Dark Moon cards, the trinkets that are as desirable as they've always been. Secondly, we still have minor glyphs. These are the more player preference or cosmetic glyphs, and they're going to work a little differently. Instead of being learned, they're going to be applied as a consumable directly to the spell. It's kind of neat. You just right-click the item, and then it opens up the spell book, and you apply it to the spell, and then you can see the effect of the glyph on the spell there. You are still limited to 1 glyph per spell, but we've removed the restriction of 3 total glyphs, so you can glyph as many spells as you want. And in addition, to round out the scribes, we've added a new consumable called the Vantis Rune. And this is a way of calling out a particular boss you want to take it to. It's a week-long buff. You can only use 1 per week. It lasts the whole week. And say, for example, this one does more damage to Xavius. Maybe your guild is having trouble getting past Heroic Xavius. Your guild leader says, all right, guys, we're all going to get Vantis Runes for Xavius. We're going to do way more damage to him. We're going to get past this brick wall and move on to the next brick wall. Okay, I'm going to talk real quick about all the secondary professions that we share. Archaeologists are going to be taking on an expansion-length campaign that's revealed over several months. It's going to take you to all the different corners of Azeroth. Well, you're going to find lots of cool things to display with a particular focus on things that you can use, equip, wear, use as pets, and so on. Cooking. This here is Nomi. You may remember him from Pandaria. He's grown up a little bit. He's going to be joining your team again as your sous chef. You bring him ingredients, and he's going to help you discover some new recipes that you can use with those ingredients. Also, for the first time in World of Warcraft history, you will be able to cook bacon. Fishing. We want fishing to feel more like an adventure. When you fish, you should be thinking, oh, fishing, I wonder what's going to happen to me today. And not, oh, fishing, I wonder what I'm going to watch on my second monitor. And finally, first aid. We have lots of exciting new bandage-related content coming from you. You have 2 more bandages with slightly higher numbers than before. It's going to be great. I love first aid. Can't get enough first aid. So there's a whole lot more we have planned, but that's all the time we have for professions today. Coming up next, Matt Goss is going to talk about items, itemization, and a little bit more.
All right. Thank you, Paul. So coming into Legion, we really, our main goal for itemization was to bring excitement back into the world. And one of the ways we did this is we went back to a system that we used to have in WoW and thought, what would have happened if we actually took it and put it into Legion? So maybe these items will look familiar to you guys. There's a freezing band. These are all classic items, Cloudkeeper leg plates, Cloak of Flames. So these were rare world drops, and we said this is a system that we want to take in. So what would these look like in Legion? So these are items that are rare. They drop from anywhere in the world. So if you remember back to Classic, you may have only seen one or two of them as you were playing through. We want to make sure that the power of these is actually relevant through the expansion. Because they're rare and they're hard to find, we want to make sure when you get one, it's actually something you want to keep and hold on to throughout the expansion. And finally, we want to kind of expand the unique effects that were there in Classic. And you saw a lot of role-specific effects or something that's very specific to, or more utility-based. We actually wanted to do effects that are role-based or class-based or maybe even spec-based. So, all right, so if you go back and you think about what it was like in 2004, and these were epic items, right? So they stood out. You maybe had some, a full set of blues, but purple items were really, really hard, really, really hard to get and hard to see. So what would this look like in Legion? So what these items look like in Legion is they look like this. So yes, that is a legendary. So this legendary actually has an effect on it where your damage over time effects and healing over time effects have a chance to do their full duration of the effect that's left every single tick they go through. So yeah, it's pretty big. So if you're an Affliction Warlock, if you're a Resto Druid, this item is amazing. If you're not one of those people, maybe one of these, maybe one of those, or maybe one of those will be useful. So we're going to make as many as we're going to try to make a lot of these and actually kind of spice up the item game a little bit more. All the effects we're still working on, so kind of a preview taste. All right, so in addition to legendaries, I should also mention too, so when we say that they're rare, it doesn't mean that they're fully random, and I think that was probably one of the things we wanted to fix when we looked at the original system. So for Legion, we'll actually have better ways for you to find them. We'll have ways that you can target specific ones. We'll have more details about that in the future. So also, in Legion, every item that drops in the world in Legion can actually scale up. And farther than Warforged, actually can scale all the way up to the best items in the game. So I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, oh my God, I'm going to have to run normal dungeons for 20 hours in order to get gear. And that's not the intent. And the intent is still the best way to get gear is going to be the most difficult content. If you want higher item level, you're still going to go do higher difficulty content. And also, duplicate personal loot can now be traded. So, yeah, so the way this works is if you have an item that drops at a power level in a slot that is equal to or less than what you already have gotten in the past, you'll actually be able to trade it to anybody else on the tap list. So we hope that that helps out personal loot. All right, so let's talk about something completely different. Let's talk about transmog. So we love transmog, and we knew that there were some problems with it that we wanted to address. And so our goals coming into Legion were pretty clear. We wanted to get all those items that are in your bank, in your inventory, in your void storage. We wanted to help you clean those up. So if you're keeping those items around, we want to help with that. We want to expand customization as well. I think there's always more things we can add, and there's a few more that we're going to be able to do. And finally, collection. And if you go to, my bank, I'm sure a lot of these guys and a lot of you guys, the reason you're keeping these around is because you like the collection part. You like having your tier 1, tier 2, and kind of checking those things off. So we want to keep that feeling going forward. So we're going to introduce the wardrobe. So the wardrobe, as soon as an item is bound to you, the appearance is automatically unlocked into your collection. And once you unlock it, you can toss the item You can get rid of it, DE it, obliterate it, whatever you want to do. And yes, so it's account-wide. You have to be able to equip the item in order to unlock it. So if you have, but what it does mean is if you have a paladin who has just a plate chest piece and a death knight who has a plate chest piece, it will unlock when one of them gets it. So it's pretty cool. So this is what the UI looks like. So yeah, so the left side is going to look very familiar to you. That's kind of where you can see which items are currently transmogged. The right side is the new wardrobe UI. So when you're transmogging at a vendor, you'll see this UI. When you're out in the field, you'll actually see the wardrobe UI, so you can kind of keep track of your collection and what things you want to get. At the top, you can see a bar that says 16 of 527, so that's how many helms this person has unlocked. They have a lot of work to do. And we also wanted to, again, going back to the customization options, one of the biggest pains with transmog is you're kind of keeping sets together and it's hard to keep track of which items are where. So we've added outfits to transmog as well. So outfits are pretty simple. You can just store what you currently look like as an outfit. But what's also cool is you can actually link that outfit to other people, and so they can take on your outfit. Even if you don't have all the appearances unlocked, it'll actually give you kind of a little bit of a shopping list to find those things in the future. All right, so I'm not done. So when you log into Legion, every item that's in your bank, your void storage, your inventory, they're automatically going to get put into your collection, assuming that they're bound to you. We are also going to go back and look at every quest you've ever completed, and we're going to unlock that appearance. That includes items you may not have even chosen. So, yeah. So if you had a choice between the chest piece and the shield, we're just going to unlock both of them for you. All right, still not done. So you can also save different outfits per specialization. So let's say you're a shadow priest and a holy, your two specs are shadow and holy. When you switch to shadow, you can actually save out a completely separate transmog look, so whenever you change specs, it'll keep up with you. Still not done. So you can actually hide slots. So if you want to hide your cloak and your helm, you can actually save that out per outfit. So if you really like the pirate hat, you can keep the pirate hat in that outfit, but not in your other outfits. We're also allowing you to hide shoulders in Legion. All right, still not done. 3 new transmoggable slots. So first one, weapon enchants. In Warlords, we introduced the enchanting hut with illusions. You can now get through those. We're unlocking shirts. And finally, we are unlocking tabards. So yeah, we're really excited about that. All right, guys, thank you so much. We are out of time today. It's as much as we could fit in. Please send us feedback on everything you've seen. 30 minutes from now on this stage, we're going to be doing Q&A, and we're going to answer all the questions that you guys have submitted already and the ones that were submitted online. So thank you very much. Have a great BlizzCon.
Thank you for attending the World of Warcraft Legion Game Systems panel. Up next, World of Warcraft Q&A.
You're watching BlizzCon 2015, an original DirecTV production since 2008.
Already tons of information coming out of BlizzCon 2015. We've still got lots more for you. I can't believe that we're able to cram this much information into just 2 days. It's been unbelievable. The esports has been going crazy, lots of releases, and we are just now coming back from the World of Warcraft Legion's Game Systems panel, where I mean, so much information.
My head is exploding.
My head is exploding. My head's been exploding for the last 48 hours. But we are so happy to have Chris Siggety, executive producer of StarCraft 2, sitting at the desk. How are you, Chris?
Good. How are you doing? It sounds like you're having a fun time, which is great.
We are having a blast, and congratulations. The launch of Legacy of the Void is nigh upon us, some might say.
Weren't you guys just celebrating as well in the arena?
We were, and that was really special because it's been really tough, to be honest, to launch the game so close to BlizzCon like this. And the amount of effort that goes into a BlizzCon is really overwhelming at times, and we're trying to figure out the right way to have some notes for this really, well, obviously near and dear to my heart, but I think the best community in the world, the StarCraft 2 community, and have a moment with them, and that's what that celebration was about.
You know, is it kind of bizarre to you to think that this tournament that's currently happening is the very last Heart of the Swarm tournament that you're looking at?
It is. It's both, I guess, somewhat. There's a little bit of bittersweet to it, but it's also very exciting. You know, I talked about this a little bit in our launch celebration event, but for me, Legacy of the Void really represents to StarCraft 2 what Brood War represented to the original StarCraft.
Yeah.
All the component pieces are going to be there here in just 2 days. We're going to see this esport community now direct all attention towards what is a very, very different experience. It's so much faster paced. There's so many things that are going on. I'm so excited to see what they do with it, and then we're going to get this opportunity to really work with the community, with the pro community, with the players that are playing, and evolve StarCraft 2 in what we hope is the best strategy game out there, period. Bar none, our best effort ever, you know? So there's still this huge journey in front of us as well.
Yeah, and so I was at the cinematic release party in LA, and heard you talking about the fact that you guys were initially, when talking about StarCraft 2 and the story of StarCraft 2, wanting to put all of this into one game, which is unimaginable.
Yeah,
in my
we
opinion.
literally could not have done it.
No way.
We would not have been able to tell the story we're trying to tell in the way we were doing it. So that's true.
So, and this is now sort of the final chapter in this story saga.
Yes, exactly. So that is.
Listen. Every little sound tingling all over your body and your mind.
And she's talking about how excited she is to get this opportunity to explain some of the things politically that are going on. What happened at the result of the end of Legacy of the Void?
You know, the lore of StarCraft has always been something that I love reading about because it's incredible. It really is. The love story between Raynor and Kerrigan and everything, it just kills me.
Yeah.
But I will say that I watch it on a competitive level.
Yeah.
And for somebody like me, and I've always been very honest about this, StarCraft I've always been slightly intimidated by because I watch the pro players, and I know I'm never going to be a pro player, but with something like with Legacy of the Void coming out in Archon mode, for somebody that is new to the game, will that be the best way to get into it, to not feel like I'm just going to get murdered when I get out there?
Well, I think there's a couple things there. One is, yes, it's intimidating. It's intimidating to me to watch the pro level play.
Yeah?
It's one of the reasons I love to watch it. They are playing at such a high skill level that it's hard to imagine yourself ever getting there, right?
Yeah.
People do it, but it's a journey that's extreme. But I think for me, I step back, and you have to realize that they are the best of the best.
Yeah.
But that the game is built to work at your level, whatever level that is. And we've spent a lot of effort with Legacy of the Void, making it the best onboarding experience yet. They've completely revamped, the team has completely revamped how you get into the game, how it describes how to play Protoss, Zerg, Terran. The campaign, to answer for you, if you give it a shot, get in there and
I'm going to give it a shot. I promised Morheim that I would.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I'm going to hold you to that.
Yeah.
So, but it does level up. It has it introduces the complexities of the game across time, and that you can get better at that and start to understand it. And slowly, as you do this, becomes less overwhelming to you. And then you can make the choice as a player. Do you really want to go in and play competitively on the ladder?
Yeah.
You don't have to. That is not that's not all that StarCraft is. StarCraft certainly has that, but I think people get caught up in it a lot because it is such an elite esport.
Oh, yeah.
There's
it's like
this
the
whole other
granddaddy
game.
of it.
Yeah. So, but there's this whole other game there, and the campaign is a huge way to get in there. These new modes, Archon mode that you spoke about, is a really compelling way to learn with a partner, get in the game, get somebody who does know. You just take these units out and start attacking the enemy, and don't worry too much about it. I'll have some more for you in a moment. Archon mode allows that. With our co-op missions that we've added to the game, that's another way to get into it. But in general, it's a mindset that I feel like StarCraft does struggle with because these elite players are out there so much. But there's so many different ways to enjoy and play StarCraft.
Well, we're also getting great Twitter questions coming in. Here's one from @VegasQC. I would personally love to know exactly what race/league Chris Siggety plays in StarCraft 2. Moorheim had this similar question once, and this person loved it. So I play Terran. I'm a Terran player. I've always stuck to Terran, and with Warcraft 3 it was humans. I don't know, there's something about, I guess I'm a xenophobe or something against aliens, I don't know. But I also, as far as League, I'm not the greatest player. I have a great relationship with StarCraft 2, and I'm okay sitting in the Silver League area of play. But that's because I don't put in the time, and I'm okay with that. I understand that I'm not going to be able to dedicate those number of hours to really climb the ladder up to Master or Grandmaster's level. And this is a standalone, right? So
yes.
If you haven't been part
That's actually a great point.
If you haven't been part of the StarCraft 2 inductee journey, you can start without having...
Just jump right in and play it. You will, from a story perspective, I do highly recommend Wings of Liberty and Heart of the Swarm. To get you up to speed, but it gives you enough input to understand where things are at that moment. It's very Protoss focused in the beginning, so it does stand alone in its own chunk, and of course you can buy it in that way if that's how you want to consume it initially.
Was that hard, just from a story perspective, to try to figure out how do we finish the story for all the people who have played before, but also invite people in a way that makes perfect sense and is its own compelling story?
It wasn't as difficult as I think you might expect, because we had this, they are tightly packaged moments in story, so you can bring them online with very little intro into it because it's so Protoss focused in the beginning of the game.
That's so great. Well, congratulations. Good luck.
Thank you so much.
Can't wait to see the esports finale as well.
Oh my gosh, I know. Well, thank you so much to Chris Siggety. We have Diablo 3 game director Josh Mascara coming up in just a couple of minutes, but first we're going to take a look at patch 2.4, which features 3 brand new zones to explore, each inhabited by some of the most unique and menacing creatures in all of Sanctuary. Here's a sneak peek at patch 2.4 for Diablo 3.
In patch 2.4, we're adding a lot of new content for players who love exploring the world of Sanctuary, including 3 new zones: Grey Hollow Island, the Eternal Woods, and we're opening a new wing of Leorix Manor. Grey Hollow Island is a haunted coastal forest. It's constantly raining, it's bleak, it's dangerous, it's filled with creatures and fauna that want to kill you. It's a horrible, horrible place. In the forest, you have some Sasquatches. You have the Silverback and the Bonebreaker, massive furry beasts. You have wasps. Our players love the wasps, so we've made a wasp nest. We have the Hive Mother, who is a variant of the Rat King, except she shoots wasps at you. And then in the cave itself, we have a series of more aquatic creatures, such as the Amputator and the Flesh Harvester, which are a small crab and a very, very big crab, and then the Abyssal Callers and the Abyssal Protectors, which are sort of Diablo mermaids, if you can imagine them. The lore in Grey Hollow Island is very interesting, and there's a mystery that you're going to have to unravel. It's going to take you a little while to figure out, and for our more dedicated players, those who know the lore on their fingertips, they'll be able to tie some of this back to the rest of the game. It's a little hidden. Only the very best of the best will figure it out, but some of them will, I know. The Eternal Woods, it's a snowy forest that is just outside of the ruins of Seshron. Players are used to appearing in front of the ruins of Seshron and running forward, and it turns out that if they just turned around, there's a whole new zone behind them, and they could have gone there all along, sort of. It's got most of the monsters that you find in the ruins of Seshron, as well as some undead that sort of have managed to survive in the permafrost of that forest. Our players will remember that when you enter Leoric's Manor, there's a majestic staircase in front of you, and on the right side of the staircase is some rubble that's blocking it. And now that rubble's gone, and you're going to be able to go into the right wing of Leoric's Manor and explore that space, which you've never been to before. What excites me the most about patch 2.4, about the new zones we're adding, is really that we're trying new things in all of them. We're trying different things from what we've done before with the story, with the monsters, with the space itself. Players are going to be finally getting those new spaces, exploring them, exploring the adventures there, and going to discover all the cool new stuff we've added.
So much great stuff coming to Diablo 3 that we figured, who better to talk to us about it than Josh Mosquera, game director of Diablo 3. Josh, I am so happy you are here. I feel like this entire BlizzCon, I've just been waiting for someone to come sit in that chair and talk to me about Diablo 3.
This is, we call him Prince Albrecht.
Oh, that is awesome.
Albrecht.
Yeah, and I'm really happy to be here. I mean, this has been a very special BlizzCon for us. The main thing we wanted to do is really celebrate our community. And the two best ways we can do that is announce our biggest patch to date. Yeah. It's not only going to be the biggest, but I hope it's going to be the best. We had like a whole new area to the game, like Grey Hollow Island, set dungeons, a bunch of changes to the game itself, but more stash space.
Yes,
Who doesn't need more stash space?
Honestly, in the PR meeting, and when they said that, I was like, yeah! I got up, ran out the room. Fantastic. So talk to me quickly about the set dungeons. I mean, that's one of the things that jumped out as just a really great way to get, as they were saying, a way to teach people how to use the set, which I didn't even think about. I just thought it was a cool thing to do. So talk to us a little bit about the concept of the set dungeons.
So set dungeons really started off from, so every once in a while we do these game jams where we, just get together as a team for a couple of days and come up with a bunch of really crazy, awesome ideas. And in fact, a lot of
one of these game
they are epic. They're epic. There's some really wacky stuff. But Alex Solman, who's a designer who's been really sort of pushing forward the idea of set dungeons, he just had this really great idea of like, okay, if sets are the pinnacle, the items you're hunting for and slaying all the demons for, it would be nice if we can celebrate them, more than just the fact that you get to wear them, but what if we can create these really awesome set dungeons where, so we really get to sort of challenge the player in a fun way, and they get some really cool rewards for going through that. And it's just going to be one of those things that I hope that we've been having a lot of fun playing them, and I hope that when the feature goes out live, that people will have a lot of fun and sort of like, and we're going to keep evolving, see what comes out of them, and what people really love about them.
And I love that you have to kind of find out where they are. I'm going to try to not just search online. I'm going to be like, I want to find them.
That would be, and that's the other really cool thing with the fact that we added adventure mode to the game. It's become this great vehicle for us to be able to add more content to the game. But we're also trying to find new ways of adding story that really supports the way that people really play our game.
Sure,
like, people don't play Diablo linearly. They play it over and over and over and over again. So we added set dungeons, these things, these mysteries you got to try to solve. Grey Hollow Island has a cool little story baked into that. Same thing with the new area in Leoric's Manor. So really trying to find cool ways of adding story that feels like it fits the adventure mode way that people play D3.
Alex and I both play on PC, and a lot of my friends that are on console, they get a little jealous because, we get these kill streak rewards.
Right.
Are we going to see that on console?
That's one of the things we announced, that, we're making a bunch of changes to the PC.
Announced.
We are bringing action combat across from the PC versions of the game to the PC versions of the game. So, and it's a really fun way. It really changes your moment-to-moment gameplay. You now sort of really care about making sure you keep that kill streak going as far as you can.
And how are they working? I heard that there was something else too about the the environment, destructing the environment.
Yeah, so there's two types of rewards. There's the kill streak, so the massacre, as we call them, and there's also the other one is the more you destroy in the environment, because what else are you going to do with barrels but smash them?
Kill them.
So the more barrels you smash, the faster you'll get a small speed bonus, to really encourage to go
Yeah, the
going
speed
that.
bonus. Yeah.
So those are the two things from Action Combat that we're bringing across to PC.
And you guys did a couple UI changes that, you know, as a player, are really helpful. You know, Sunwuku Monk pops into your game, and all of a sudden you're like, I don't know. Especially now that Focus and Restraint have kind of become the end game go-to. Now that we have Kanai's Cube, that buff bar. I mean, sometimes stuff didn't even show up on that buff bar if it didn't pop. So can you talk to us a little bit about the consolidated buff bars and how you figured about packing in that stuff?
This was for all the reasons you mentioned. We realized that our poor buff UI wasn't buff enough. So we really needed to spend a lot of time thinking about the right way of displaying information. Like, it's not a matter of always having them all up there, because then it just becomes like a crazy mess to figure out what's really important, what isn't. But we really listened to a lot of feedback from our community. We did a lot of iteration, and I think what we finally ended up with is a really good balance between functionality, usability, accessibility, and more importantly, getting the information you want when you need it the most.
Oh, man, that's awesome. Well, we do have a few questions from Twitter for you. So our first one comes from The Angst. The Angst says, when will we see what's going on with the Immortal Throne? How much longer until the time is right?
Well, we might have to wait a little bit more.
KG, I like it.
Yeah. You know, I mean, in so many ways, we're not done with Reaper Souls. I think that's the most exciting part of where we are, that both internally within the team and within Blizzard, but also with our community, like, we're in some ways just really getting started in terms of really figuring out what really makes the gameplay of Reaper that awesome experience. It's really going to cement the legacy of D3 for the years to come, right? So we're really, I mean, we're just having so much fun. It's awesome being able to release content at a good rate. You know, no longer going dark for a year and a half, 2 years, and then something. You know, every couple of months, we fundamentally try to change the game. We add some crazy features like the Runes of Sessions, Kanai's Cube, set dungeons. I mean, these are really big, meaty patches, and it's awesome to be able to.
When Kanai's Cube came out, I thought you were breaking the game. I was like, you can't do that. You can't do that. And then it now is just changed the whole aspect of the end game. I have another question about the seasons. When you play through, you're sort of enticing people to play through the story again in seasons now, because at the end of each of the acts, you're going to be getting pieces of one of the sets, so that by the time you're 70, you theoretically have at least one of the sets. So my question is, I might get some of those pieces at level 12, at level 30. Are they going to scale up to level 70? Am I going to be able to use the full set at level 70 as a level 70 items, or how is that going to work?
That's one of the things that I believe that's how it's going to be working, is when we go to PTR, again, we want to make sure that we're not breaking anything, because it would be terrible for us to break anything. And I think the philosophy is, if these sets are really going to be the reward, they're not much of a reward if they're a level 12 set and stuff like that. So again, we really need to see how things evolve. But if they're going to be rewards, I mean, fundamentally, we want them to feel like rewards.
Yeah, and I mean, you know how to do it with the Gem of Ease, which has been fantastic, allowing that to scale up, almost sort of like heirloom items in Warcraft. It's fantastic. You guys have so much stuff going on. Josh, thank you.
Thank you for stopping by.
Much for stopping by. Now let's send it over to Malik, who's standing by with an esports update. What's going on over there, Malik? I've heard it's crazy.
Crazy it is indeed. Guys, you know, when I came out to BlizzCon, I did not know that I was securing my one-way ticket to Upset City. There are so many upsets happening out here, starting off with Hearthstone. Man, the Hearthstone tournament is getting real. We already have one player in the grand finals. There was a match between the Dutch deck lord himself, Tice, and Oskaka. Oskaka, in a surprising turn of events, was able to come out on top. His freeze mage deck was just too much for Tice to handle. And throughout the match, you saw Tice being very frustrated, putting his hand in his head in his hands. He was just completely frustrated. And Tice, he's now out of the tournament. So Oskaka is going to move on. And on the other side of the bracket, we have Hot Farm and No going one-on-one against each other. Like I said before, Hot Farm is the last remaining North American player in the tournament, so it's going to be interesting to see if he can pull this out. Now, I said Upset City earlier. There are some serious upsets happening in Heroes of the Storm. In a run-back of the European Championship, Team Dignitas was able to take out Navi today. This is completely unexpected. A lot of people were expecting Na'Vi to be all the way to the finals, but Team Dignitas will be moving on. And on the other side of the bracket, we have Cloud9 squaring off against Team DK from Korea. And we're going to see who's in the grand finals after that. They'll be facing off against Team Dignitas. I told you guys earlier, do not sleep on the European teams. And right behind me, the match between Life just took place. Life is moving on to the grand finals now. This is big because he's going for a second year in a row. This is history in the making. Nobody's ever been able to do that. He was able to take out Classic. Classic actually played the most solid match against him that anyone's played. He's been very aggressive the way he's been playing, just rushing his Zerglings in. Classic had good defense for a couple of matches, put Life back against the wall, but Life was able to pull it out in the end, and he is going to the grand finals for the second year in a row. Now the other side of the bracket, SOS and Rogue, the match is getting ready to kick off right behind me, so I'm going to sit down, post up, and check out what goes on with this match. In the meantime, I'm going to send it back to the desk with Alex and Michelle. Thank you very much, guys.
Hey, Malik, thank you so much. That was amazing. God,
I can't believe Life made it through.
Life is going insane right now.
Yeah, that was crazy.
I can't wait to see more, but first we have another Warcraft panel coming up at the bottom of the hour. But first, have you ever wondered how many artists and designers it takes to create the expansive environments in World of Warcraft? Well, the answer might surprise you. So here's a look behind the scenes at the highly anticipated expansion, Legion.
I'm Chris Robinson. I'm the art director of World of Warcraft. A brief description of the new hero class, the Demon Hunter. These are Night Elves and Blood Elves who were essentially conscripted into the service to fight against the demons using their own power. They were part of an ancient army that was brought to life once we realized like this threat that was coming at us, and kind of brought them out of hibernation or where they were currently at to fight against this power that we realized is much stronger than something that we could probably handle on our own. To discuss the art team as a whole, I think we typically talk a lot about the leadership team of WoW when we're at BlizzCon and how those people form the vision and work together to create the art that you see in the game. But we really wanted to take a look this time at the team and the team members and what they do to pull their collective vision together to form what we know as the game. We have a character team, a dungeon team, an environment team, a prop team, an animation team, and a technical art team. And it's a combination of all those ideas and all those people coming together that creates what we have.
The character art team creates all the creatures, player characters, bosses, pets, armor sets, and weapons for the game. Demon Hunter has a lot of customization with horns, blindfolds, different muscles, different textures, a lot of tattoos, patterns, colors, so players will have a lot of different customization.
The environment team, along with the exterior level designers, work on the largest art asset of the game. I'm talking about the world. So when we started working on this expansion, we were expecting to do small encounters of the Legion all around the Broken Isle. But when we started exploring more into the Legion and what they could be, we decided to do a Legion homeworld, which players have never seen before. So the art team just went crazy with that. We explored what an entire planet that was destroyed by the Legion would look like.
The prop team works on props, staging, and effects. We have to tell a story with how we stage everything. When a player walks in and you've staged everything right, they should be able to tell exactly what's going on, what kind of person uses that camp. So with the Demon Hunters, it was just lay everything out so that it looks like that story, that these guys are nomadic and on the way to war, that they're hunting demons. So it's the staging as best as we can is meant to convey that.
The tech art team works on a variety of processes, tools, things that enhance the artist's productivity, allows them to focus on making art as opposed to wondering how are they going to get this art into the game. One of the many responsibilities of the tech art team is rigging. Rigging is a matter of putting controls, ways of manipulating the underlying skeleton inside of creatures and characters that the animators will use to bring life to those models.
The animation team gives life to all of the characters, creatures, and dungeon bosses. To reflect the animations for the Demon Hunter, we used Illidan as a reference point. We knew we wanted to have the player feel like they were playing Illidan. And so we had a lot of combat animations follow what he did.
The dungeon team works on all the architectural elements in the game that you interact with, including dungeons and raids. We worked on the prison of the wardens, where all the demon hunters were imprisoned. So we had to figure out what that prison would look like, what kind of architecture would be able to hold that many demons. It's night elf based, so we tried to infuse a little bit of that design into the architecture as well. We used materials like stone and dark metal to emphasize that it is a prison.
There are no people, there is no one person, there are no group of people that are dictating and creating the ultimate vision for what we do. It's a process of collaboration amongst all the artists on the team, and each individual voice and unique view makes what we know to be Warcraft. Without all those views and all those unique voices, it's nowhere near as creative or as awesome as we've been able to make it.
See how beautiful that game can be. You know
I know, and it's such an incredible team. They really do have an amazing team up there. They're fun to visit, everything. They've great people.
Well, look, as you guys have seen this weekend, Malik has been checking out our show floor, and yesterday he stopped by the T-Mobile booth to get some information on what they are providing the attendees here at BlizzCon.
The internet is serious business, especially when you're at a gaming convention filled with smartphone signals that are jamming your reception. But I'm here with Mike Belcher, who works for T-Mobile, and he's going to tell us a little bit about what they're doing to help mitigate those issues that you have with internet connection. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing great. This is a fantastic 2 days here in Anaheim.
Yeah, is this your first BlizzCon?
This is my second BlizzCon, but this is the first time that T-Mobile has sponsored BlizzCon.
Nice, nice. So what are you guys doing to help with like Wi-Fi connections here?
Sure. So, we wanted to we're here in a big convention center. We wanted to make sure that everybody had a great mobile experience. There is so much great information to share. There's so much excitement. People want to tweet it out. They want, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, or Periscope. We want to make sure that they're allowed to share that, stay connected. So we're offering free Wi-Fi to everybody here in the convention center. So every attendee can stay connected, even if you're not, with T-Mobile on our data strong network.
Wow, wow. You, my friend, are what many would say or call the real MVP for doing that. But, what's a good cell phone connection if my phone is dead all the time and I need to charge the battery? Do you guys have anything to help mitigate like my phone dying?
You know what, we got that covered too. We say we're all about limiting pain points, and charging is one of those. And so we have charging stations located throughout the entire convention center. And of course we have this area right here, this little lounge. You can charge up your phone. So again, you're always connected and you're always got the power you need.
Well, I'll tell you this, I might come sit at your booth and play some Overwatch on my laptop because I like to be mobile at all times. But thank you very much, Mike, for your time. We're going to keep going around and talking to people, so I'll see you guys very soon.
It's so nice that they actually have telephone companies that are helping out at conventions, because Lord knows charging stations are needed. And it's great that Malik's out there meeting everybody.
I know,
having
talking,
a good time,
shaking hands.
Not just covering all the crazy esports that's been happening.
I know, right?
We've been having a really fun time here at the deck.
We have. This has been great.
Lots of cool guests.
Yeah, a lot of great guests. I know you're very excited about everything Diablo. So.
I was so glad we had somebody from Diablo.
Like, I'm going to let Alex just go insane on this because he is so excited and he knows how much of a dork I am about Warcraft. So.
Well, speaking about dork about Warcraft, we've got so much more Warcraft coming up. We're going to send it over to Hall D for the World of Warcraft Q&A panel.
Yay!
Check it out.
Welcome to the World of Warcraft Q&A.
Oh my goodness, hello BlizzCon! Welcome to the World of Warcraft Q&A. I'm your moderator for today, Jesse Cox. And I, like you, in the years past, have sat out there, and so I know that you are some of the best, most excited WoW fans there are, and so you have a lot of questions today. You've seen the panels, you have seen what the devs had to say, and it clearly was not enough. So, this year we not only did some things a little differently, we opened up questions to those of you who could not be in attendance today, but also we tried to make it a little bit more fair for those of you who couldn't run to the front of the line to ask questions like we have done in years past. So after every panel, you could go to the Darkmoon Fair and deposit a question for the devs there. So, without further ado and much bother, let's get the devs out on stage. Your game director, Tom Chilton. Lead game designer, Ian Hazakostas. Lead game designer, Jay Wilson. Lead game designer, Luis Barriga. Art director, Chris Robinson. Creative director, Alex Prasiabi. And lead game designer, Matt Goss. Gentlemen, are you ready?
No.
Ready.
Oh, yes. Not yet? Well, get prepared, because your first question comes from one of my favorite people in the world. You know him and love him.
Oh, yeah.
After you, sir.
Okay. My question this year is about Illyria and Terralion. We were told they were returning in Legion, but I was thinking they never had a chance to see that the orcs weren't as evil as they were portrayed in the Second War. They missed the Mag'har and never saw Thrall. So does that mean they might be part of the Horde and Alliance being at each other's throats, which was also mentioned as a plot point?
I'll take this one, right here. No, but when we finally, in Legion, discover Illyria and Terralion, the way you view WoW will change. It'll up the game a bit. So nothing to do with that, but there's amazing things in store.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ian.
Our first online question, is there any hope of sub-races, such as Tonka or Dark Iron Dwarves, being playable in the future?
I'll take this one. So this is actually this was like the most voted, or one of the most voted up questions amongst our community. There were like tens of thousands of votes for this. So I feel like a couple of things. Number one, I feel like it's important for us to sell the fantasy behind the races and the classes in our game. That's like a core feature of something we consistently try to support and grow. If we've successfully done that, I think the second part becomes then supporting that and adding more variety and customization within that system. So the easy answer is yes, we're going to do that. We really love the idea. We have the characters in game, we're connected to them, we feel very strongly about that. The more difficult answer is, how are we going to do that? And we're going to continue to work on that and make it happen.
All right, it's your turn.
So Warcraft has always been about community. So can we have affiliated guilds with cross-guild chat and scheduled combined raid scheduling?
So yeah, something along those lines is definitely something that we would like to work towards. I think we recognize, looking back at Warlords and how the group finder has played out and how increasing cross-realm connectivity has shaped the social landscape, there are more and more groups that transcend server boundaries, and the traditional definition of what a guild means doesn't quite encapsulate them so neatly. I don't think it's something we're going to be able to do for Legion at launch, but it's definitely something that we want to work towards delivering to give you a way to stay in touch with and organize a group of friends with shared interests, whether it's a cross-server raiding guild, a cross-server battleground group, or anything else along those lines, as you see fit.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
This next question is also one of the most highest voted. Will the achievement to unlock flying in Legion be fully completable at launch?
Well, it'll exist at launch, but it won't be fully completable at launch. So it will be completable in a later patch, much like the Warlords achievement was. But it will be there right from the start so you can make progress on it.
All right. Evan.
Hello, I'm Evan, representing Bone Chewer. Anyone out there? Bone Chewer? Anyway. So, my question is, what do you plan to do with Bolvar 4 Dragon in the future? Is he going to be in this expansion, or is he going to get his own gig? What's up?
Well, that's a great question. I will say this. This expansion in Legion, there's going to be a little cameo. We'll see Bolvar somewhere, probably the Frozen Throne, I guess. And absolutely, in the future, beyond this expansion, we've been talking about it, so we'll see.
Thanks, sir. All right, our next online question. Will there be more cosmetic class quests, such as Green Fire?
Yes, no, maybe? So we definitely have a wide array of class quests in this expansion. As you probably all know about with the artifact acquisition, there are different class quests for every single one of those weapon acquisitions. So we're definitely interested in class content, and that's something that we're focusing on for this expansion. But as to whether it will be stuff like, specifically like the Green Fire, we'll have to see.
It might be Green Fire on your artifact weapon, for example.
Yeah.
All right, Andrew.
Hello, I'm Zensu Nim. I'm the add-on author for GTFO. Thank you. If you LFR, please use it. My question is actually about the shared tap system that you introduced in Timeless Isle. Awesome for PvPE, and I was wondering if that was going to be implemented for some of the older world content, the older world raids, rares and bosses.
So we're actually looking in some ways to take that a step further even beyond that. Once you actually get into Legion, we're actually looking at revolutionizing the way tapping works in World of Warcraft, period, in the outdoor world. Imagine if, rather than one person hits a mob, it's locked out to everyone else. If individual mobs allowed up to, let's say, 4 or 5 people at most onto their tap list, and so you could all share loot, experience, and quest credit without necessarily needing to join a party. So when you go into a quest area and you see someone else there, you don't kind of grumble and immediately go in the opposite direction to avoid them. Well, unless, of course, they're the opposite faction, in which case you should do that, or kill them, depending on your server type. But rather, and you also don't feel like, okay, let me send this person a tell, say, hey, do you want to group, even though you know that you're probably going to stop grouping in 3 minutes as soon as you're done with your quest and you go your separate ways. You can just cooperate organically without allowing for some of the more kind of rampant abuse of like an entire raid group zerging through and tagging things. So that's where we're looking to take tapping in general. Now, obviously, for major targets like named quest bosses, world bosses, and the like, we're still going to have open tapping that allows an unlimited number of targets. But yeah, we have exciting plans there. Can't wait to hear how it plays out in Legion.
All right, thank you.
So another really important question to the internet. Will you try to release one expansion per year, or are you going back to one every 2 years?
Well, we still have a goal of launching expansions more quickly. So that's something that we're trying to move toward. I don't know if, when we'll get to one per year, maybe next time, maybe never. We'll see. The overriding commitment is to quality for us, and that's ultimately going to trump release dates. But that being said, we have built the team. We're trying to get more done so that we can have more content and so we can entertain you guys more effectively and better than we ever have before.
To you, sir.
Yes, hello. My name is Dayton. I play Zal, Protection Water on Moonguard. My question for you today is Sargeras' tomb where the fallen god's remains are, or is it just a monument?
That's a great question. And right now, it's a monument.
All right, thank you.
That may change.
Another question from online. Are there any plans to improve guilds, such as guild housing or guild quests? That is a perennial favorite every year.
We call raid bosses guild quests. But obviously, guilds are very near and dear to our hearts, and they're very important to the general social structure of World of Warcraft. And ultimately, they really are a social structure more than anything else. Something that we would like to be able to do is give people the ability to essentially be in multiple guilds at some point, so that you can have your guild of friends, your guild of raiders, your guild of PvPers, stuff like that. That way you can essentially mix social circles. Now, it's possible that all the functionality won't be one-to-one if you're in some kind of like secondary guild or something like that. We still have yet to really design it out entirely, but that's kind of the general compass heading for us.
Hi, I'm Starletta, and I'm asking, will there be a new PvP battleground in the Legion?
No Brian up here, so I guess I have to take this one. No. So we are really putting our focus on the new honor system. Obviously, battlegrounds are very, something that's very important to us, but we're really focusing on the new progression system, the new honor system that goes along with essentially all the battlegrounds. Although, I guess maybe if you wanted to take a different spin on it, if you imagine all the current battlegrounds with a bunch of demon hunters in them, they're like totally new battlegrounds, all of them.
Will zones, such as the Draenei or Blood Elf starting zones, change with the invasion of the Burning Legion?
No, we don't have any plans to update those for Burning Legion.
We do have Legion invasions that are taking place all over the world, and it's possible that some of those could strike some of the starting areas.
But let's be serious. If you were the Burning Legion and you wanted to cause the maximum damage to concentrations of players in Azeroth, would you really start with the Exodar? Probably not.
I don't know. Take out the next generation of players.
All right, your question.
Hey, I'm Scar from Rebuff for Confidence on Mal'Ganis US, recruiting hunters for Legion. My question is, what is protecting Dalaran from being invaded or destroyed on the Broken Isles?
That's a great question. And the Dalaran we see on the Broken Isles is upgraded dramatically. You have to imagine a city of mages has some innate protections, but as you guys get through the expansion and actually kind of find out the actual secrets within Dalaran, you'll see exactly what's protecting it, and it's big.
Thank you. Do you have any plans to resolve stories that began with Cataclysm? We've had 5 years to address the damage.
You said that so angrily.
It's an important question to me as well.
Does it make you angry too? I'm mad about it as well. Yeah, I'll say yeah, sure. I can't give you an exact time or date, but we want to. We'll get around to it.
Your question.
Hi, Corey Campbell, also Volstites, Death Knight with the Convert to Raid team Threat Level Midnight, member of the Acarus IRC Death Knight community. Threat Level Midnight, totally recruiting DPS. So, won't people running Legion challenge modes only take players with optimal keystone affixes?
So I think one key part, so to speak, of the Keystone system is that all the affixes are actually standardized globally for a given week. So all keystones generated will point to a random dungeon, and they'll have a power level that's appropriate based on, the skill and the accomplishments of the holder. But if you have, enraging at low health guys that blow up when they die, everyone in the world will have that combination. And so you can think of it in a sense as almost like Hearthstone Tavern Brawls, where every week you're going to have a new little twist on the rules, a new set of challenges to learn and master, and as you practice that week's runs, hopefully you get better at figuring out how to handle it, and then it's on to something new.
You heard it here. We got this idea from Hearthstone, not from Diablo.
Thank you very much.
When will the inventory system be updated, such as more bags for the bank?
So I think I touched on it in the last panel too. Like transmog seems like the biggest offender right now, and that was one of the things we really wanted to address, was to get all those items that you're holding on to just for their cosmetic look. I mean, we're always looking for ways to improve it, but right now, I mean, the bank is for items. Items are in it. We just want to make sure that we get as many of the items that you're not actually using or want to hold on to out of there as possible. Or that
I honestly don't know what's going to go in my bank or void storage once we have the new transmog.
Yeah. Consumables.
Sweet.
Health potions.
Fill it up with potions.
Hi guys, I'm Dylan, Alduin on Kel'Thuzad, and I love the focus on class fantasy with Legion, but I have a question about warriors. Is Titan's Grip for Fury warriors dead?
No. The artifact is just too small. So we're actually planning on taking the artifacts and sizing them up, but Titan's Grip is alive and well.
Great, thank you.
We do think that holding two-handers is a very distinctive thing for Fury Warriors, and we dig that.
The next question is one that is near and dear to my heart. Can we get a clear lore answer to there being only one Burning Legion transcending all realities? Was the patch 6.2 Archimond the exact same Archimond who was killed at the end of Warcraft 3?
Well, in an inflationary universe.
Go ahead, Tom. I'll tell you what, we got this expansion coming out called Legion that's gonna answer those questions. The Archimond thing, yes, maybe. We're working out some kinks there. But the expansion will absolutely get into the details of multi-legion versus singular legion, and we'll get a clear answer. And it probably has something to do with Alarian and Turalian. No, it doesn't, I'm kidding.
We could have made it simpler by renaming them, make them Archimad or something like that.
Where were you when we were doing the fight? That's a great idea, Tom.
Hey, my name is Sean, but I know this has been actually answered already, so what the hell? Can we have more character slots per server? I know there was supposed to be, I think, one extra for the expansion, but I was curious if there's more.
We're going to give you one more slot in Legion so that you don't have to delete any characters to roll a Demon Hunter. So make sure to use it on your Demon Hunter. Save it for that.
Okay, thanks.
Or don't.
Will Legion have new scenarios?
So I think scenarios in the form that they existed in Mists as something that you queue for through the UI as, you know, a standalone system, no. But we've taken what we learned from making scenarios in Mists and integrated that type of gameplay into a wide variety of content. So I mean, in a lot of ways, the Broken Shore that Alex talked about yesterday, that begins the expansion, is a 40-player scenario. There are single-player scenarios, and there are smaller group scenarios that will actually be integrated into the world quest system at max level, but they're more seamlessly part of the world rather than something that you just push a UI button to access while you're sitting around town.
Hi, I'm wondering, what do I do if I want both early access via a pre-order and the physical collector's edition?
Right, definitely a great question. So we've actually supported this in the last few expansions, and what you can do is you can pre-order using the digital, and you can use that, and then once you actually get your physical collector's edition, you can contact customer service, and essentially they'll be able to switch it out for you at that point and get you kind of the difference.
Okay, thank you.
So, how will you prevent multi-role classes from having significant disadvantages in upgrading their artifact weapons like they have to do now with the legendary ring and going to buy a new one?
So yeah, so definitely people who want to play multiple specs actively will be able to claim and use and upgrade multiple artifacts to accompany those specs. We don't want the stumbling block to playing multiple specs to be that you have to go out into the world and feel like you need to do a lot more grinding or what have you to keep all those artifacts up to date. I mean, instead, there should be more of a sense of reward and the fact that you get to access more of the unique story content from one spec versus the other. So I think we have a lot of catch-up mechanisms in place planned to let second and third weapons very rapidly get up to the power level of your main weapon. A lot of those mechanisms will also be of assistance to people who take a break or join the expansion later on, so they don't feel like they're always behind the curve. I think the one area where there will be some differentiation is in the relics that Craig talked about on the stage just an hour or so ago. Those are the standard item drops that you're getting from a boss, and when you get a really powerful holy relic, you are going to have to decide if you want to socket it into, let's say, your silver hand as a holy paladin or your ashbringer as a ret paladin. But that's not really very different from the world in which we live today, where you're deciding on what trinkets you want to roll, what items you want to get for one spec or the other, and you need two separate sets of weapons to play many specs in parallel.
All right.
Hi, my name is Annie, and my question is, can we please have 3 specs?
No. Just kidding.
Sure. We'll do that. Matter of fact, if you're Druid, we're going to let you have 4.
Sure, why not?
So yeah, in Legion, we're going to let you try spec, and in the case of Druid, quad spec, and in the case of Demon Hunter, dual spec. Sorry, Demon Hunters. So yeah, absolutely.
We've actually smoothed out the UI also, so you don't even actually have to go and purchase your second or third or whatever spec. You can actually, just in the spec UI itself, you pick whatever spec you want, activate that spec, it'll remember your action bar and your talents and all that kind of good stuff.
There's also a default spec, so you no longer have that weird broken, oh, I forgot to spec and I have nothing, so.
Yeah, no such thing as no spec anymore. Respect.
Yay, thank you.
Another great question from the internet. Why are you removing multi-strike but not versatility?
Yeah, Matt. Why?
No pressure. So multi-strike for us, there's a couple reasons. One, it is kind of just a different form of crit. And a lot of classes don't actually have really a fantasy for what multi-strike is, and we ended up having to weave it through a lot of our class design. So if you look at like a prot paladin, they actually have a special thing to deal with multi-strike so that it's still viable for them. So we didn't really see the advantage for having crit and multi-strike anymore, so it seemed like it needed to go. So versatility, though, versatility doesn't have that problem, and the other thing it does have is it has a defensive component too, which makes it attractive to different people. So I think PvPers really like versatility right now. Tanks generally like versatility as well, and we like that niche for it. So, yeah.
I think it leaves us with a picture of stats where each one has a special identity and purpose. Like crit is do stuff burstier, haste is do stuff faster or do more of it, mastery is specialize at some specific component of your spec, and versatility is this all-around mixed offensive defensive component. One thing I would ask to people who just hate versatility is whether you hate it because it's bad. Like if we just buffed it by 10% and it was on par with your other stats, would you mind it as much? Or is it just that you're so used to looking at items with this stat as a booby price? I'm not necessarily going to answer that more rhetorical question, but good thing to discuss.
Another question from the internet. Will you introduce more catch-up mechanisms for alts, such as speeding up rep grinds?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we actually look at alts quite a bit, and we talk about them quite a bit. I don't know if we really talked about it much in Warlords, but for the Legendary Quest, we actually had catch-up mechanics for alts in there as well, which, helped out. And for artifacts, like Ian just talked about, that's something that, we look into when we have dual spec, or, you're leveling your second spec or your third spec artifact, maybe we can take that system in for alts as well.
I think in general, philosophically, we avoid like strict account-wide things because part of the point of playing an alt is doing things on that alt and having a feeling of progression. But it does make a lot of sense for things to be faster, a bit faster the second time you do it on a second character or the third time you do it on a third character. And we realize that more and more people want to maintain and actively play alts. So it's definitely something we're aware of when we design any system in terms of striking a balance between something that's going to be interesting and engaging the first time around, but not feel really daunting if you're looking at it a second or third time.
Next question. Will we see any event like the AQ gates during Legion?
As the person that implemented 90% of that, God, I hope not. No, there are things kind of like it. You know, we talked briefly about invasions happening, and those are happening all across the world, and it will take participation on kind of a server level to beat them back. So kind of. Moving forward, we talk about it all the time. We talk about that type of event activity. So we think fondly of it. We just got to find the right time, the right place, and then do it. So, yes.
800,000 linen required to open the Tomb of Sargeras.
You know, here's a fun fact about that, Ian. I tripled the numbers that Chris Earhut gave me because I'm a jerk. But it worked.
Will Karazhan be relevant in the Burning Legion?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, Karazhan is a place of tremendous importance. You know, as we look to unearth the secrets that we're going to need to prevail against the Burning Legion, a lot of those secrets and a lot of that heritage is kept in the Tower of the Guardian, and that means Karazhan.
By show of applause, would you guys like to see Karazhan as a 5-player dungeon in, say, patch 7.1 or something like that?
What? What? That's crazy talk, Tom.
You're nuts.
Good feat.
That could never happen.
All right, it's that time of the Q&A for this question. Will we receive any hint about what's below Tirisfal Glades?
Yes. In fact, one of the artifact acquisition lines will shed some light on what's going on down there.
Spoilers, man.
I didn't say which, and I didn't say what was going on down there. It doesn't even come close to spoilers.
It's true, it's true.
Seriously.
I guess you didn't.
The obvious answer is dead bodies. There's lots of dead bodies below Tirisfal.
There's always dead bodies.
I think that's actually where the AQ event is.
For the AQ event?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where it's going to happen.
Where is Rathian in Legion?
He's definitely there.
Cool. So,
I think he's still in Pandaria, right?
Well, actually, he may have some interest in the zone of High Mountain, which of course features Neltharian's lair, and that is a person of some interest to Rathian. So, if he were to be lurking, it might be a good place to look for him.
Or under Tirisfal. We don't know.
Just don't expect him to look the way that he looked before.
Spoilers.
I know.
Will there be any more interesting raid mechanisms like the Karazhan chest event?
No, we have no more interesting raid mechanisms planned in Legion.
Thanks for coming.
Don't worry, in the spirit of dumbing things down, we'll turn it into a checkers event.
Any chance we'll see an event like the Battle for Undercity ever again?
Well, again, is the guy that implemented that, I hope not. That's an interesting question, right? Because what is the Battle for Undercity anyway? I mean, really, because it's gone. You have no idea what the Battle for Undercity is. It's over. But it's something that is, I consider it just kind of a really long evolved scenario, if you think about it, right? It just existed when we didn't have scenario tech. So yeah, we will see things like that in Legion and beyond as we continue to kind of improve our storytelling through things like scenarios and longer events. So yes, absolutely, as long as people want to continue making stuff like that and punishing themselves, yes.
Is there any way to make old world materials relevant for professions?
Maybe. Yeah, it's kind of it's something we would love to be able to do that. A lot of times, though, it's what the expansion says to us, and in this case, we have all new materials. It's hard to do because I don't know. I think my reagent bank right now on one of my characters is just full of linen, so I'd be able to just min-max everything out right away. But I think that's kind of the problem with a lot of those. And Legion, we have so many cool things in Legion that we can make materials out of. It seemed like the right fit.
We definitely can make them relevant. Whether you would actually enjoy that is debatable.
Linen bandages is going to be the big comeback.
Will we get more lore on Forsaken, Worgen, Tauren, or Gnomes?
Game Greymane.
In the game.
Oh, in the game?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Always, yeah. There's stuff coming up. You know, we've got a lot of Tauren-esque things in High Mountain that should give shed some light on things. I would definitely argue that there's going to be some Forsaken lore coming up. Gnomes, I love gnomes. I do, and so we're going to probably not do anything for gnomes. No, I'm kidding. We'll totally do something for gnomes, right, Luis?
Totally.
Yeah.
Gnomes are an important and underappreciated part of the Alliance.
Yeah, absolutely.
They'll get their day in the sun.
No, there's exciting new things on the gnome technology front that I'm making up on the spot that you're going to see in Legion.
Where did the moose horns come from, Alex? How did that happen?
The moose horns?
Was some kind of unholy union between a Tauren and a moose?
That's totally what happened.
Okay.
Right? There are a lot of moose in High Mountain. You do the math.
Alex, you left out Worgen. Gilneans do play a big role in this expansion as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Good point. I missed that part of the question because I wasn't listening.
Okay, so will old gods feature in Legion in any way?
Yes, kind of. Yes. Actually, not kind of. They totally will. That's probably what's under Tyr's fall. Shit. Probably spoiled something.
Will there be more than one raid per tier in Legion?
Well, clearly we have 2 separate raid zones planned for the initial launch of Legion. Looking ahead to future patches, I think there's a decent argument to be made that some of our huge monolithic zones that we've made, while they are awesome and epic in scope, like the 13 boss Hellfire Citadel or 14 boss Siege of Orgrimmar, might actually be better served if we were to break them up and have, let's say, a 6 boss raid and a 7 boss raid with varying environments, a bit more choice for what you want to do on a given day, but still fitting in together as part of the same larger tier.
So with that in mind, do you plan to make smaller raid dungeons for players who don't have time for a 7 or 10 boss raid?
I think it's actually not so much about size, though obviously 13, 14 does get to be pretty huge, as much as layout. I think that we've tried to do a lot with non-linear layouts. If you look at Heimal, if you look at Foundry, the choice built into them, as well as the shortcuts that you can unlock, I think are designed in many ways to cater to the guild that only raids 1 or 2 nights a week and can't necessarily afford to fully re-clear 7 or 8 bosses just to begin working on the thing that they're currently stuck on. So we're very mindful of the need to offer the ability to choose your path through raids and unlock new shortcuts.
So will you be bringing back reforging?
No. Yeah, I mean, I think we talked a lot about it last BlizzCon, like with the gems being secondary stat with food. We think we have quite a bit of customization in your secondary stats, and reforging just doesn't feel necessary anymore. And Ian's going to correct me.
Maybe only reforging to versatility. What do you think?
Oh yeah, actually that's good. Yeah, as much versatility as you want.
So what will happen to our artifacts in the expansion after Legion?
Exact details, TBD. I think the artifacts, so one of the things that we need to be mindful of when we create large expansive systems in WoW at this point is what they're going to mean carried forward into the future. And when we constrain something to a single expansion, it gives us a lot more freedom to go crazy with the complexity, the depth, the power of that system. I think the garrison in Warlords is a great example there. Your garrison is very much staying in Draenor, and you're going to leave it behind when you move on. And I think the artifact weapons, The artifact weapons are something that you're really going to customize and develop and will become a part of you over the course of the expansion. But we're not really committing to, okay, you're never getting another weapon again, ever again, no matter how many expansions we make. Or all of these perks and traits are going to be a core part of your class and spec forever. So I think we see the artifact as something that is inextricably tied to Legion. It may be something that you hang up over your mantelpiece as, a memento of the war against the Legion in years past when you're a retired adventurer. But it is something that, you will not be wielding forever. But while you have it, it's going to be essential, and it's going to be a major, major part of the expansion.
Do you ever think you're going to put in some sort of bad luck protection mechanic into the game for rare, sought-after items that never drop after 3 years of trying?
I think so. We have some things to do with bad luck protection in our current content. Going back in time and adjusting those. I mean, we take a look at them every once in a while just to make sure that we're not being too unfair with them. But part of the coolness of those things is how rare they are and how hard they are to get. And so we don't want to stomp on that too much. Like if you had a guaranteed chance that you'd get it after a certain amount, like I don't know how exciting that would feel to most people. So we leave a lot of those alone.
I think it's also a really big difference when you're talking about a power item where, going weeks and weeks without seeing your fourth set piece or that essential trinket feels like it could really handicap you versus a mount that is, or a pet that is by definition just super rare. When we talk about cosmetic things like mounts and pets, there's a wide variety of ways of obtaining them. Some are things that you have to, do something really skillful for. Others require a lot of time investment, and others just require luck and persistence. And that's just kind of the nature of them. There aren't many, but those that are there are important because of that, like Matt said.
Where is the dance studio?
I thought I saw it in Warlords.
Under Tears Fall.
Yeah, it's in the Garrison, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it might be.
Still a feature we'd love to do someday, but gonna have to find the animation time for it somehow.
Do you plan to introduce any sort of classic realms that allow players to play at previous expansion levels?
We do not plan to do that. There tends to be a lot of emotional desire for that. Although when other MMOs have tried that, they don't actually tend to survive for very long. There are a lot of complexities with that because you get the old, it kind of has to be a bundle where you get the old hardware, the old code, because the old code's meant to run on the old hardware, the old data, the old bugs, all that kind of stuff. And of course, the natural expectation is that, oh, well, you would fix all that stuff. But kind of maintaining that many different versions of the game is just not really feasible. Particularly in a world where people that are playing the game right now really want more content, not less.
Will artifacts in Legion lock characters into using them, even though that particular type of weapon type might not be their favorite or what they desire aesthetically?
Yes, sort of. So when we set out to make artifacts, we knew that we wanted to define really unique, fleshed out weapons with deep backstories and identities. And in many cases, that meant committing to a particular type of weapon. It meant saying, okay, when we make these dual rune blades for the Frost Death Knight, they are two swords. They're not either two swords or maybe one big one if you want to play two-handed. And so, yeah, there is some element there where we know that some people who prefer a different type of gameplay are going to feel like their artifact weapon isn't ideal. But we focused on really just making the weapons as cool and as defined as we could make them. Now, in terms of pure, aesthetics and visible appearance, while you can't transmog other things to look like your artifacts, if you want to transmog your artifact to look like something else, you do have the ability to do that. So if you just absolutely hate the idea of wielding an axe, but you really want to play a spec that has an axe, you can make it look like a sword or something. I think you'd be kind of crazy because the art's really cool, but you could do it.
So how will racial variations of classes be represented in the class hall?
So, sorry, go for it. It kind of varies case by case. So depending on what class we're talking about, different races will be represented there. But definitely the fantasy that we're trying to go for is that the Alliance and the Horde, traditionally, they've gone at it, right? But right now the Legion is invading, and you, as the leader of your class, are bringing all the subclasses or the subgroups within your class together to confront the common enemy.
So, are we ever going to get any Alliance character development that doesn't result in a character dying or being lost?
No. No.
Okay.
I mean, really, if you think about it, everything eventually results in dying. It's just a matter of, time frame.
Sorry, Alliance.
That's very happy.
But don't worry, anytime something dies, we find a way to bring it back.
That's a good point.
So going back to class halls, is it possible inside them to chat freely with the opposing faction?
No, the language barrier still exists. The class hall is a shared space. You will see plenty of other paladins. Many of them may not be of your own faction, but just because you are tentatively cooperating towards a common goal doesn't mean that you could suddenly speak each other's language.
There is one exception. So we're trying it for now. We'll see if it holds during beta, but demon hunters can speak demonic to each other. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes.
So pre-made groups, are you looking into making these easier to plan events with strangers, considering how Open Raid works?
Yes, I think Open Raid is a great site. Can't recommend it enough to find people to pursue shared interests, shared activities with. We're really happy with how the pre-made group finder has taken off and has made it easier than ever before for people to find groups to do things like raids, mythic dungeons, PvP, and really everything else. It's something we want to continue to expand and provide support for in-game. I think this kind of touches on a question from sort of the beginning of the Q&A where we were talking about, the state of guilds and social networks that span servers. That's an area that we really want to explore and do more in.
So in Legion, will we see an appearance by any of the alternate universe heroes?
No.
Well, heroes.
Is Gul'dan a hero?
Is Gul'dan a hero?
Yeah. It's my hero. No, he's not Jesse. Don't get mad. Not on the outset. We'll see. TBD.
Will we see any more Gilneas?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. So Gen Greymane plays a big part in this expansion, and we'll also run into Gilneans that fled separate from the group of players that got afflicted by the curse. So we'll get a little bit of a different angle on their story.
So a new PvP system without PvP gear. What kind of gear are we getting?
So, we will be dropping PvP gear in strong boxes and in weekly quests. It will be equivalent to the kind of gear you can get in the world or in dungeons or in raids. It'll be based upon your arena rating or your rated battleground rating, whichever one's higher. And pretty much anything we've talked about for items you can expect to see in that gear.
Will we be seeing the final expansion boss during the leveling experience and/or early raids?
Yes, definitely. We love doing that. We love giving you a taste of the things you're going to kill eventually. So absolutely, it's a huge part of storytelling for us in WoW. It's a huge part of building up the characters themselves. So yeah, absolutely want to do that. We are doing that, yeah.
Do you plan to make Raid Finder or Mythic Raid Finding flex size?
So, Raid Finder theoretically is flex size in that it uses the same flexible tech. We try to matchmake groups of 25 players, but if a few DPS drop, you'll see that everything immediately scales down so that you can just go ahead and pull rather than having to wait for backfilling. But ultimately, if anything, we would probably use flex to make it go up above beyond that size, but we already feel like we're bumping up against the highest threshold of like what works socially and keeping any sense of personal responsibility there. So I think, with Raid Finder, it mostly boils down to the ratio of tanks to healers to DPS. We did reduce the number of healers required to start Raid Finder groups and kind of rebalanced accordingly to help the queues go more smoothly there. Now, Mythic, that's a whole separate question. I've definitely heard, feedback, questions, concerns from Mythic guilds that are struggling to field a 20-player roster consistently and are asking, could we do 15, could we do 10, could we do flex? The answer, flex, I think, would be tremendously problematic for all the reasons that we discussed a couple of years ago when we first announced flexible rating and that structure when applied to Mythic rating in particular. That is to say that while we've gotten better at tuning over the course of the expansion with respect to raid size, there's still there are a lot of inconsistencies, and people who've raided Hellfire Citadel can attest to the fact that we had to make a number of hotfixes to improve the tuning on fights like Gorefiend or Archimond or others at smaller raid sizes. On Mythic, no matter how well we got it, that's also the exact same audience that's going to say, well, okay, the right number for this boss is 13, and the next boss is 18, and so, all right, you 5, sit around and just be here for when we need you. Don't go anywhere, sorry you're not going to get any loot or have any fun. That's not the experience we want to create, sorry. Now as for individual raid size, and is 20 the right number, I think in a game that now is going to have 12 classes, the answer continues to be yes. I think that tuning for 20 players allows us to assume a certain number of moving parts. It allows us to assume that you have one of every class for the most part, that we can do things like you can break your raid up into 2 or 3 smaller groups, and each of those groups has enough meat to it to actually be a cohesive unit. And ultimately, and I know this is, isn't necessarily a satisfying answer, keeping guilds together and recruiting and managing a roster is hard at any size. I mean, I remember personally as a player leading a guild that was a 40-player guild that was, when we went to 25-player rating in Burning Crusade, breathing a sigh of relief and saying like, oh, finally, like my roster struggles are over. It's going to be so easy to field 25 because, wow, that's such a smaller number. And then fast forward a few months, your roster naturally shrinks to like 28 or so, and then you find yourself with 22, 23 people logging on for a 25-player raid, and you're exactly where you left off. So I think we'd like to do more to make it easier to find people to raid with, to find abilities to grow your guilds, and for players to look for guilds with, like goals. And that's how I think we can help solve the problem, not by moving the number from 20 to 15 or to any other specific number.
Is there any chance we'll see more classes getting new roles, such as Warlock Tank?
No. Right now, we're really focused on Legion and what's great for Legion and the fantasy of each character class and maximizing that, rather than trying to divert a class off into something that's really not the fantasy of that class. We've got a lot of great tank characters and healers, and we don't necessarily need Warlocks also doing that as well, and other classes. So no plans at this time.
So how will we find groups for the new Keystone Challenge dungeons?
So Legion Challenge dungeons are not going to be something that is part of the looking for group random matchmaking system, because ultimately they are about sort of a shared challenge. There is one person who is putting their keystone up at risk essentially when you start the run. So the plan is the group finder is going to be the great place to do this, as well as obviously your guild and your social circles more broadly. I think one of our goals with the system, though, because the keystones themselves are going to be relatively hard to come by, having a keystone that is still yet to be burned, that will yield loot when used, is actually a great commodity. So unlike a lot of things, like a world boss today, where maybe if you miss your world boss kill on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and you're looking around on Sunday to find people who want to do it, it can be hard to find people who haven't done it yet for the week. If you have a challenge keystone that's still available to be used on a Sunday, you should have people lining up, wanting to group with you, wanting a shot at the rewards that that's going to bring. And so, you get to kind of call the shots, and we don't think it will be difficult to find people to help you in that endeavor.
That way you can be an elitist jerk for a day and say, I'll take you and you, but not you.
Can you address split rating in Legion?
Yes, but I don't really have a satisfying answer. So I really hate split rating. I've talked to a lot of people, here at BlizzCon, at other events, online. in high-end guilds. No one likes the feeling of pressure at the very, very high end to gear, run, and play 4 or 5 different characters solely for the purpose of running multiple raids to funnel loot to the very, the ones who are going to receive it. I don't know that there's a great way to stop it, other than like personal loot being the default mandatory loot game-wide. That would solve the problem. I think that would have some other collateral consequences. So it's something I'd love to hear further suggestions about, love to hear discussion about. If there's a way of doing it in a targeted way, I think it'll make the experience better for everybody, because I know there's that downward pressure from the highest echelons that tends to trickle downward where you feel like you need to do this thing that isn't really enjoyable in order to compete. I mean, alts are great, but our general philosophy with alts is that we want you to play alts because you want to play the alt. You want to do something to progress that alt for its own sake, for a change of pace, rather than that you have this alt solely to feed your main.
Will the old Nefarian encounter and Blackwing Lair gain a new Demon Hunter class call?
Yes, of course. When we added Monk, we went back and updated the Nefarian encounter. So if you haven't fought Nefarian on a Monk recently, go check it out. He has something special for you. We'll have to do something on the Demon Hunter, maybe double jump related. Like just off the top of my head, maybe he just like makes you jump repeatedly, and after like quintuple, octuple jump, you just fall and take a bunch of fall damage. That feels like the kind of thing Nefarian would do.
So going down the row of panelists here, in Legion, what is the one thing that you think people may not notice, but is something you really, really, really like, and you think they should sort of check out when they get into the expansion?
We're starting at the other end, right?
Sure.
I'm going to steal what you would say. So, I think that one of the things that's going to be very interesting, actually, is going to be kind of hunting down a lot of these new legendary items. I think it's going to be a lot of fun for players to identify which ones they really are most interested in and kind of maximize their chances at getting them, run the content that they want to run in order to be able to get it. I think that the ability for those to have transformational effects on your character and cause you potentially to change what your talents may ordinarily be, or maybe even change direction in your artifact tree could be really interesting.
I think most of the big features and systems are stuff that's already been covered this weekend. Something small, I've seen a couple of people beginning to pick up on it at the demo station and looking at some of the streams online. We have a lot of awesome UI improvements just coming to the basic interface in Legion. Selection circles, nameplates, cast bars, a lot of things that I think are going to make the game just out of the box much more readable, much more usable, and just a better experience all around.
We made some pretty cool improvements in Legion to, especially for melee characters, to some of the effects, some of the animations, the new sword trails in particular, or weapon trails, I should say, I think are really, really awesome, and I think people are going to really enjoy them.
I think if we do our job right, people won't notice the scaling levels. It'll just feel natural. The mobs will be your levels, and it'll feel awesome that you can go do any level up zone in any order. And I think we'll see a really, really cool implication in terms of gameplay. It means you can group with more people that might be different level than you. It also means that the alt gameplay level up experience is very, very different each time. So really excited about that.
That was my second choice.
So this doesn't necessarily directly answer that, but there is something that I feel like is conspicuous in its absence, which is class accessories, and something that people have asked about quite a bit. If you remember a while ago, we came out with a blog talking about how we wanted to add more class accessories to really sell the fantasy behind the classes, and I feel like that's something that we don't do as well as we could right now. So how that went down was we were going into that. We actually have built some of those models. We've done some of a lot of the concepting at this point. And when we started working on Legion, Tom or somebody had come to me and said, hey, we kind of were jamming back and forth on ideas about how that would go down. And he's like, actually, we've got this whole system coming up in Legion that somewhat overrides that. And I was like, phew. And then he went, and it's called Artifacts. And I went, oh, okay, awesome. That's good. We can do that. So basically what it was is that as we went in to start working on Artifacts, we decided that, and took a look at what that looked like and all the concepting and that process that we went through, there was a lot of overlap between class accessories and what we're going to see in the artifacts, whether it be Librams or supportive objects that you get along with the artifacts you'll be wielding. So we're still going to work on that. I definitely want to put more time into it. I definitely want to get back to doing class accessories. And now that we're at a point where we work through artifacts and we learned all the lessons and figured all that stuff out in that process, I think now is a great time to go back and re-ask that question about what is left to fulfill that fantasy for each class and really kind of hone in on that at this point.
Good answer.
Thank you.
How many people here have played the Demon Hunter intro experience on the floor? That's quite a lot of you. So you may have noticed that we have some new tech for storytelling, so to speak, the talking head stuff. We really want you to pay attention when those pop up. But did you know that Legion is the expansion that has the most VO of any expansion we've ever done? So, and it is super cool. And what that actually means is when you're out in the field and you're battling various bad guys, practically every world group out there in Legion has aggro lines and pissed lines and things like that. So you'll be getting a lot more of that kind of interaction and that kind of immersion when you're out in the field, along with talking heads and along with a couple of other cool storytelling tools.
Yeah, I think for me, it's a lot about, it's not like one feature, but it's sort of the goal of the team to get back into dungeons and have that 5-player experience be really cool again. Keystones for me in the whole challenge dungeon, that is something I'm really, really excited about to see. And from the item side, we're really happy to help support that as well. Just, you know, I don't know, I didn't play nearly as much dungeons as I usually did in Warlords, and I'm hoping we do more.
And then going down one more time, down the line, if you can mention it, your favorite class spec, let's do artifact weapon. Can you say that?
Sure, we can. Capable of saying that. Well, in terms of pure aesthetic, I'd have to go probably with the axes for the Blood Death Knight. Those things are crazy, crazy cool looking. In terms of functionality, well, Ashbringer is one of the first ones that we actually fully fleshed out, and so far it's looking really cool.
Yeah, I'm going to say Philo Malorn, the Fire Mage Runeblade. I think when we talk about a caster sword, I think there's a certain challenge in making a large, visually impressive sword that looks not like it was meant to actually hit people with, but like an intensely magical conduit of power. And I think that weapon and its variants just deliver on that incredibly. And man, the acquisition quest, you have to check it out when you get there. It's a special one.
I'm highly biased, but I'm going to say Holy Priest because that's what I play. And that's primarily the artifact I paid attention to because that's what I play.
I'll say I can't wait to play Demon Hunter live. Havoc Demon Hunter is so fun to play. I can't wait for you guys to check it out. And in spite of that, though, my favorite artifact has to be Ashbringer. There's nothing that comes close.
Man, I still want to plead the fifth on this one because there's all these artists that worked on all these amazing weapons, and if I say one, then I'm that guy that said like which one was my favorite. But yeah, I guess I'll go there. I like the Blades of the Fallen Prince is the the Icy Death Knight sword, and I think I'm a sucker for that kind of gothic, you know, the gothic horror stuff a little bit, and the fact that we brought some of that into WoW really resonated with me.
I'm with Chris. Blades of the Fallen Prince are mine as well, and for good reason. I mean, you've got an artifact that you're making out of the remnants of Frostmourne, so that's pretty cool.
You guys are all wrong. The right answer is Eagle Spear, because Melee Hunter is amazing, and really, I was one of those people who thought it was viable in vanilla, and I'm so happy to see it come back. So.
All right, and one final question. I think it's the most important. Is Jaina a dreadlord?
Is that a real question?
Yeah, it's right on. It's on this card right here.
Oh, wow. Yeah, sure, she is. No, she's not.
That card is empty.
She's not a Dreadlord. Hey, can I, by the way, before we go, I want to apologize to the gnome lovers out there, because I know right now on my Twitter feed, they're asking for my heart to do weird gnome things with, and I need my heart. So I'm sorry. I love you, gnome lover people, gnomes.
I kind of apologize to you guys too. I think I've offended that entire group of players multiple times.
Yeah, me too.
All right, well, that's it. Thank you, guys, and thank you all for watching.
Thank you for attending the World of Warcraft Q&A. Up next, the Heroes of the Storm Battlegrounds panel.
You're watching BlizzCon 2015, presented by DirecTV, your exclusive home for everything Blizzard.
I would say things were winding down here at BlizzCon, but if anything, I think they may be winding up. Lots of esports action, lots of announcements out of the World of Warcraft team. We are on fire here at BlizzCon 2015. Michelle, so much information coming out of that WoW Legion Q&A.
I know it. I'm so excited.
I know.
You know, but I will say, I love the fact that Jesse Cox got in the final question of, is Jaina a Dreadlord? I knew it, and as I was sitting here, you knew it, I called it.
You asked the question literally as he was asking
I
the
was
question.
like, is Jaina a Dreadlord? That's what he's going to ask. But no, we had such incredible stuff come out of that
lots
panel.
of information.
I'm sad to not be sitting in the audience, but glad we could hear all of it. World of Warcraft Legion is one of the most anticipated expansion in years, and for good reason. For the first time since the Warcraft RTS, you'll be exploring one of Warcraft's
out of that
mythic regions, the Broken Isles. Time now for a quick tour of Legion.
The Broken Isles, as all things in World of Warcraft, started before the Sundering. And the Sundering was the great catastrophic, cataclysmic event that shattered the world as we know it. It used to be a great and powerful night elf civilization 10,000 years ago. And after the Sundering, most of the Broken Isles was actually sunk and sent beneath the ocean, as it were. 30-ish years ago, an orc warlock named Gul'dan came back to the Broken Isles to raise part of it to serve his Dark Master Sargeras, and that is what became known as the Tomb of Sargeras. So that is basically the origin of the Broken Isles. How players start this expansion is unique and different than any expansion to date. You don't start in a single zone in this expansion. You can actually pick whatever zone you want to start in. You can start in Stormheim, or you can start in High Mountain or Azuna. The only exception to that is Suramar, which we've left as kind of a high-level, max-level zone that you work your way up to. So it's totally unique, and how we've played it so far, it feels really awesome. If I were to pick my favorite zone, it would probably be a tie between Val-Shara and Stormheim. Val-Shara is a zone that is, if you're into druids and night elves and things like that in Warcraft, it's your paradise. It is a druidic paradise. It is the heart of druidism in Azeroth. It's where druidism started, and we really represent and reflect that in the zone. It also has some killer areas in it, like Blackrock Hold, which is unlike any other parts of the zone. So you'll see this giant castle or keep that was actually built by night elves, haunted and ruinous. It feels like a real kind of fantasy homage to that classic manor or castle on a hill with a village beneath. It's a killer zone. As far as Stormheim goes, this is where we see the Vrykul pantheon of gods, their creators. This is where we see the origins of their Valkyr, the angelic Vrykul that pick up the wounded on the field of battle and take them to Valhalla, or what we call the Halls of Valor, where we see Hell or Helheim, which is a zone in there as well, where we see the damned go down and become the cursed Kivaldir. And it also has a really awesome side story with Sylvanas and Gen Greymane that I think players are going to really enjoy. So there are a lot of new and interesting and awesome and powerful and fearsome and ferocious creatures in Legion that we're going to have seen for the first time.